you. And this Monday, please forgive me, there was a bit of an internet hiccup, so we weren't able to really finish the lecture. There was only one small piece left, and I heard Jamie make a really good remark about, and also Jess, they were both saying something really good, which I want to bring up because it's addressed in that last part of the reading. So you like you intuited what was going to come next, which I was so happy about. You just felt the flow of the talk, and you immediately knew what was coming, and I was so delighted about that. But anyway, tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, I'll just do the last bit of the reading and make my final statements, which are all along the lines of going beyond lust and greed and all about like treating other people as the living, veritable manifestations of God and having no sense of hierarchy. I'm the big guru guy kind of thing, like just getting past all of those hierarchies and just creating a wholesome spiritual environment in which the transmission can occur. So I'll do that last bit of reading tonight, Ma willing, at around 6 after the Hatha Yoga class. So thank you again. Thank you one and all for coming week after week and spending time in this space. I'm having so much fun. I hope you are too. And we're doing it for its own sake. We have nothing to gain, nothing to lose. We're just doing it for fun. So thank you for playing in this playground with me. Okay, so let's take a few questions. Shrima, yes, you're unable to mute today. I see your question. Okay, so I'll take Rohanji, Amrutama, and then Manali is here, Jaima, and then we'll take Shrima's question. And Tess also. Um, okay, I'll take yours last. Got it. Good. And don't worry, Colleen, so beautiful. That's better. But yes, I'll send you we'll have the recording for you, so don't worry. It's all recorded. Ma willing, Ma willing. I say these things as if they're for sure going to happen, and then Ma's like, this fellow thinks. He's saying, I will speak about this tonight. Let's see. Let's see how much will he can exert. So Rohanji, yes, please, Prabhu.
I just wanted to just talk a little bit about like some questions I'm having about finding a guru
Yeah.
or like it's in a little situation. So it's gonna be a little long-winded. Um, so
Do you want me to
basically,
stop the recording, or are you okay to have this recorded?
I would rather maybe stop it from recording
That's a
because
good
these are
idea. Something personal, let's just keep it off the record. Okay, I'm just gonna. Oh, record. But yeah, so all of that off record, but hopefully it's helpful to some of you. I had fun. Thank you for that little bit of exploration. But you can see whenever a spiritual community falls, it's almost always because of sex and or money. And Tucker pointed out, like the only obstacles in spiritual life are lust and greed. But now here's the thing: there's nothing wrong with sex and money. Like I just said, a person should have the most fulfilling sex possible. They should have the most fulfilling romantic life possible, which means like go out on dates and stuff. Like explore your romantic options, like enter into a wholesome fulfilling relationship. And I'm not even saying like that has to be a monogamous relationship. Articulate your own idea about what it means to be happy in the world of romance. Like some of you might like a more like a open type relationship setting, an open relationship or an open marriage. Why not? Like all of those things are really mature and really beautiful explorations. The LGBTQIA movement is very important because it argues for like sexual choice on every level of your being. So having this conversation in June is very important, I think, because this is Pride Month, and now we're recognizing that like maybe there's not just like one way to enjoy romance and sexuality, and we should each and every one of us be empowered in our sexual romantic quest. But the most important thing is that we do it dharmically, right? And that's why we say there's nothing wrong with karma, but karma will be unsustainable, will be somewhat painful for you if you pursue it adharmically. That is to say, if you try to take from somebody something that they're not willing to give, then you'll get into trouble. Both people will get into trouble. Like you'll owe them some karma in the future, they'll have a debt to collect, but you also you whatever joy you get from it, you won't enjoy really. It won't be real joy. To get joy from sex and from romance, you have to make sure that everything is as consensual as possible and as equal as possible. That's why asymmetries of power are adharmic when they come to in the context of romance and relationships. So I'm not saying spiritual teachers can't date. I'm just saying a spiritual teacher often in their life will experience a lot of asymmetry. And therefore, as long as that asymmetry is there, it would be adharmic for them to date. So if you're a spiritual teacher and you want to date, sure, just make sure you separate those two. And maybe it's kind of hard to do. But when you're a spiritual teacher, you're not in romance mode, you're not dating, you're not allowed to date. Why? Because of an asymmetry of power. Then there's no longer dharmic. But that doesn't mean outside of your spiritual life you can't look like. And I'm saying that's hard for a spiritual teacher because usually a spiritual teacher's entire life is spirituality. So it's a big sacrifice to take up the mantle of being a spiritual teacher. It's a big thing. But if you are a spiritual aspirant, like we were saying, again, having a romantically fulfilling life is important, but be careful not to look for that within your spiritual community. That's the only thing to say because you can find real, genuine love in the spiritual community, but also it can lead to a lot of it changes maybe the energy of the room also a little bit. Now there's a kind of like flirtatious vibe in the room where before it would be this like we're all children together learning in the kindergarten sort of vibe. It's like innocent, like I don't have to like worry so much about how I look or like how I'm coming across or like our focus is on something else. Maybe there's a bhava, there's an energy when people come together in spiritual fraternity, sorority like that. And that's lost a little bit when there's this atmosphere of romance. Again, that's not against romance or anything. It's just trying to keep these two things separate if you can, to the best of your ability, your secular life and your sacred life. If you mix them, sometimes you get into a bit of trouble. And now you might say, oh, but what about Tantra? Like, Tantra is all about healing that schism between sacred and secular. Absolutely, yes. But that's why people get into trouble. Because in the name of Tantra, they engage in all sorts of worldly pursuits, but under a spiritual veneer. It's better just to be honest. If we're really, really honest, then we can be honest about what we want and we can be honest about like going about and getting it in a wholesome dharmic way. It's when we're not honest about what we want that we become a bit shady. Then when these things get repressed, they find other ways to express themselves and usually within the context of spiritual life. So sex is a very dangerous thing. It's a wonderful thing and everyone should have the best sex possible. But in spiritual community, yeah, people say like be sattvic, like the idea like there's a kind of it's a meme almost. Let's be sattvic. I'll eat food as long as it's sattvic. Like yeah, but it's a lot. There's a lot to be said about that. Like to be sattvic is to be calm, to be clear, to not to be agitated by the very natural and wonderful things. And tantra is all about seizing rajas and tamas. It's just remember the implications of such a thing. So I think to stay safe in a spiritual community, like some level of awareness about this thing needs to be there. And we have to know, and we have to be careful not to see our spiritual teachers as romantic possibilities, nor to see each other as romantic possibilities. To kind of maybe an air of professionalism. That's the second thing is money. So that's also where we get into a lot of trouble because often when we give spiritual teaching, donations are required. It would be impossible to continue a spiritual community without donations, and the bigger that community gets, the more substantial those donations have to be. However, our principle is that spiritual knowledge cannot be sold. It must be given away free. So those who are sincere should be able to access that knowledge without having to pay anything. Obviously, sincerity itself makes a person want to donate. Naturally, when someone is sincere, they might feel like, oh, I want to contribute, but it cannot be a condition. Like a spiritual teacher cannot make money a condition for receiving instruction. That's why it's sometimes nice to have a day job. Because if you have another way to make money, then you don't depend on spirituality for your livelihood. It's unlikely then that spirituality becomes your business. So when it becomes business, then we start to treat each other in a different way. See, when it's about sex, we treat each other like means to an end. We don't see each other anymore like as spirit. We see each other as what can I get from this person? So too with business. In business, we're like, oh, I will just teach whoever can pay the most. Again, the bhava changes, you know. And that kind of changes the atmosphere also. So it's very important that spirituality doesn't become a business. And so then we become very generous with our time, very generous with our energy, very generous with our knowledge, trusting in providence that the money that is needed will come in order to sustain the community. And if it doesn't come, then that community ought not be sustained. Why not? I once asked one of my mentors about this. I'm like, what if the community just implodes? And he's like, good riddance. He's like, then you'll be free. Then you can enjoy the rest of your life communing with Ma. Then you won't have to do all this work. But if mother wills that you should do this work, she must also provide. So why should I do business? Why should I ask people for money when, if it's mother's will for this to continue, the money will come? And indeed it does. Like Swamiji said beautifully, he said, never look back. Don't worry about hunger. Don't worry about thirst. Don't worry about cold. March on, the Lord is your general, and never worry about money. It will fall from the heavens. And I found this to be absolutely true. I'm not interested in money, but the money that we need to keep the lights on, to pay the rent, to be able to buy the flowers and feed all the devotees that come for our day-to-day puja, the money that we need to like pay the internet bills and the Zoom and the various things, like obviously some capital is required to keep the lights on. By God's grace alone, people are moved to just support the mission out of their own cause. This is not a plea for any of you to do that. I'm just saying something will happen within you. You'll donate if you want. And people do, whether you do or not. Randomly, like out of nowhere, a need arises. And by God's grace, somehow, almost the exact amount comes for it to be filled. This very laptop, for instance, the old laptop gave out, and I didn't think I had the funds for a new one. And about like a month after the laptop gave out, somebody sent just generously in the mail. And that's how I know Ma, by her will, wants this community to continue. But if she doesn't, good riddance. Then she'll just stop funding it, and we can all go back to just being absorbed in Ma. Why do we need to do any of this? So providence, trusting in the Divine Mother, makes sure that these things aren't a business. And having some other means of livelihood also is helpful. Or not being interested. in livelihood is also helpful. So that's another thing. So to stay safe, I think these are good red flags. Not always. Remember, you can get a lot from a spiritual community that's all about business, where everyone's flirting with each other. And like I said with my friend, bye, dear Maya, Jaima, 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 Jaima. You can be so mature about these things. Like you can be so realistic about a teacher. You just have to know what to expect, right? Like a dog is going to be a dog is going to be a dog. Like a scorpion is going to be a scorpion. Like that doesn't mean you can't get something from the dog from the scorpion. You can still get some value. Swami Ashokananda said, it's like dirty brooms. The dirty broom can still clean the floor, but you just have to be realistic about what kind of broom that is and protect yourself accordingly. So you can learn a lot from spiritual communities that are all about money and business and all about like sex and like whatnot, romance and whatnot. These are still viable spaces, but just be aware. Ideally, the safest spiritual community is one in which that energy is not present, where it's like purely done out of love for its own sake as a service to God, and where there's a kind of spirit of fraternity and sorority. So these two things usually are red flags. The third thing, obviously, is politics and power. So some teachers are very much beyond sex and money. Their being is not in the lower two chakras. They're like established in some higher chakra, maybe. But they might still want to make a lot of disciples, or they might be involved in politics. They might like to have a bigger community or something. So expanding, expanding, expanding. That too is a trap. So we say, if you sense the vibe of money, sex, power, that doesn't mean they're a bad teacher. They could still be a really great teacher, but it's not ideal. It's ideally your spiritual teacher ideally is not interested in these three things, or is honest about these three things. That's another thing. Some people put up a front that they're not interested in these things, but actually they are, and they're doing it all behind closed doors or something like that, which I think is worse. It's better just be honest and upfront, and then just like live your life, and then be a spiritual teacher, but then also be like, also I like all these other things. Why not? It's also okay. But it's at least honesty is very important. So that's why in India we say, and somebody pointed out in the chat also, we should test our teachers like money lenders test coins. Like we can learn from everybody, but when choosing a lineage, when choosing a teacher, when choosing a community, we should ask ourselves a few very important questions. Like questions about like that person, but these questions can only really be answered when you have real exposure to them, when you've seen them and seen how they are with others. And that's a good kind of metric. Sometimes in a public lecture, a person is a certain way, see how they are privately with others, how they treat like waiters and janitors and stuff. Like sometimes you'll see that's where it comes out. The narcissism, like there's no doubt a narcissism involved when it comes to spiritual teaching. After all, if every single day you give satsangs and like people are looking at you all the time, somehow at the back of your mind, a kind of narcissism can creep up. This idea of like, oh, maybe I am great. That's how most spiritual teachers get got. We have to be very aware of that. How it creeps up and it's like, oh, I'm the guru. No, God alone is the guru. So this kind of feeling that you are the guru, or like you are the center of attention, or you are the most important person, it can creep up, and it results in that person being like a diva. You know the word deva, the word diva is there, but they become like absolute diva. Like they expect chai at a certain time. They'll scream at you if they don't get it. Like screaming and hitting and controlling. Sometimes you'll see that, like on stage they're also peaceful. And then the moment they get off stage, they get backstage, they shout and they beat and they scream and they're like, "Hey, you didn't bring the cha? I was on this time." Like we've seen this, and so like seeing how a teacher is in their private time, like actually visiting the teacher and spending time with them. And Indian spiritual teachers are like, there's not a lot of privacy, right? Like they're just always kind of open. Like in the Indian context, you just go to their house anytime and sit with them and like just hang out, have cha with them like that. And then you come to see what kind of person they really are, you know? Ellen, Ellen DeGeneres. I don't know, but I hope I don't know, but all of us we have this tendency of like trying to be a rock star or something and being mean to the people who we think should serve us or something like that. So the attitude of a teacher should always be, oh, interesting, I didn't know that. The attitude should always be of a servant. So the guru is not the boss or the master. The guru is a servant who is at your service. And so the feeling should be like Christ washing the feet of his disciples, not to make a point, but just because that's the attitude. So if a guru feels you serve me, that's a big problem. But if the guru feels I serve you, it changes the vibe of the whole thing. So yeah, sex, that's one thing. Money is another thing. Power is another thing. Sri Ramakrishna would say, where sex, money, and power are, it's very hard to really make spiritual progress. It's very hard to be in the fourth chakra, is heart. It's very hard to identify spirit if you're constantly identified with body and mind. Not to say these things are wrong. They're still part of the journey, but we have to be realistic about what we want, our goals. And if we want spirituality, ideally your teacher should be either honest about these things and not hiding them behind your back, or free of these things, ideally. Okay, that's the first piece of advice here for anyone looking for a guru. It's like, test your teachers. Bye, dear Ruth. Jaima, Jaima. So happy to have you. Yeah, it was a really good one today, I think. But it's not just that, it's also like spend time with your community. Often you don't know very much about the teacher, but you can know a lot about the community. So by being with them. So spend time with the community and see what kind of community it is. The like attracts like. So usually the teacher, you know what kind of teacher it is. So sometimes by just looking at their community. Not always, but you can get a good sense of that teacher by like gauging their community. And thirdly, see their students. The quality of a teacher is not independent of the student. I mean, point of the teacher is to teach the student. So look at the student and see how good the student is. Then you know how good the teacher is. See, a good teacher is not a good lecturer, not a charismatic individual. A good teacher is someone who can teach well. And that person might not be a good lecturer or anything. So you have to, in your mind, disambiguate this idea of a charismatic lecturer of spirituality, which many times is just a good entertainer, versus a genuine spiritual teacher who might not even actually have that like charisma on stage and give fine lectures. Like these are different things. If they are both in one person, that's wonderful, but rarely are they. Some people are entertainers. They present. Other people are spiritual teachers. And sometimes they're very different types of individuals. So you have to know, this person entertains me. I listen to them and I get inspired. But this person teaches me. They like actually correct for my errors and like that. So sometimes you get them both in one. Like I'm very lucky. My guru is like that. He's a very charismatic speaker and gives great fiery talks, words of fire from the pulpit. But more than anything, he's a teacher. He knows just what to say at the right time for the right person for what they need at that time. So I think that's important too. Look at the community, look at the teacher, spend some time with both community and teacher. And of course, if you're interested in this topic, let me just show you over here. It's a very important topic about staying safe and like how to practice Guru Yoga. If you're interested in this topic, like these videos, I think will be helpful to you. So if you click into this like Tantric Guru place, like over here, if you click Tantric Guru, Guru is so important in our tradition. So all this stuff, like how to choose a guru, who can be a guru, Ma Sarada as a guru, and then like, these are important. These are important talks. Rogue gurus and fallen yogis, how to stay safe, and this one, the genuine guru, and also what is scripture and why it matters. These three, I think, are like safeguards, parameters, which I think I've noticed in the new age are often like very much like ignored. These three things, especially the importance of scripture and staying grounded and peer reviewed and corroborated. So, okay, hopefully all of that helps you, Rohanji. But ultimately, I think here's my ultimate suggestion. Sometimes we just have to plunge in. If we're too timid, if we're waiting on the sidelines, always testing, testing, testing like that, then sometimes it's not in good spirit. Like we don't take a person at their word. We don't trust them. That's not a it's cynical attitude. Who wants that? So actually, it's better that sometimes you just take a chance, but you be aware, you just take a chance, and then remember, God alone is the guru. This is the most important teaching. Yes, a human being might act as a guide. Like they might be there to like show you how to do puja, to give you a mantra, to like correct for things, but it's between you and God always. So that way you see God in your guru without needing your guru to be anything other than a human, because your guru is at least one person in which you're willing to see God despite human flaws. And ideally, a good guru means you don't have to be a good student, because a good guru, it comes naturally. If you meet someone who is really truly a guru, like in one sense, they'll be generous, so generous that you can feel the generosity of God. They'll be so beautiful and so sweet and so lovely that you'll feel the beauty and love and power of God. So you don't have to do very much. It's easy for you to see God in them. But if you have the kind of guru, like my friend I was telling you about earlier, who maybe has some complicated personalities or whatnot, then you have to be a really great guru bhakta, because it's even harder to see God in that person. But that's the effort. The effort is not to be naive or gullible, but the effort is to be willing to see God in an individual and be willing to be guided and taught by them in a spirit of reverence without being a fool. So yeah, the guru will never harm you. And that's the thing. Like obviously, that's why I'm saying we shouldn't be gullible or naive, and we shouldn't just like surrender our reasoning and our instincts and our intuition like that. We should, of course, in the beginning be careful, but I don't think you should tolerate harm from the guru. But then again, there's a big difference between being challenged and being harmed, and this is where people get into trouble because we can't quite discern. I in my life have had gurus who have always empowered me in everything, even when those things might have been bad for me. They've always given me the space to experiment. I've never had a stern guru. I've never in my life been scolded by my guru. Not really. And I'm very lucky because I know some people, they have a really stern guru, who shouts at them and scolds them. But I've only had the love of a mother. I'm a Shakta. I worship God as mother. And so by her grace, my gurus have been mothers to me, never fathers. I've never had a stern guru. They've always like whatever nonsense I've done and thought and said, they've always encouraged me in it. One time, I said something in front of some respected Swami who kind of laughed at me. Who not even laugh at me, but he just kind of like didn't take the answer seriously. And then my guru stepped in. He said, "Oh, bye, Ronji. Jaima. I hope this helps you, Ji." And my guru stepped in and said, "I appreciate that idea." And then he defended my idea. That's the kind of gurus I've had. My guru is like that. So my guru has never harmed me. Far from it. My guru has always given me the space to harm myself if I need, in order for me to learn a lesson. My guru has only ever loved me and held me. So I don't have any experience in this style of guru yoga, because I've never experienced it. I know some gurus, they correct their students sternly. I don't know. I don't know anything about that. But I've never had to ask this question of like, oh, is this just harming my ego and therefore I should be okay with it? I get emails though from people who are like trying to find spiritual value in systems of abuse. They're like, I think my guru is abusing me. They're saying bad things to me. They're saying all sorts of horrible things. And they're making me do all this kind of seva. And I don't feel good about it. But some part of me thinks this is what it means to make spiritual progress. Aren't they like scrubbing out the ego? I don't know, girl. I think you're run the other way. I don't know. It sounds kind of sus. Like a guru does everything gently. Otherwise, why take a guru? If you want a stern guru, don't have a guru then. Then be in the world. The world is a stern teacher. If you want a stern teacher, might as well go into the world. But if you want a guru, then you should expect a kind of gentleness, I suppose. A guru should be able to lead you from what you know to what you don't yet know. Yeah. So that's why I think I don't because of my own experience. I'm not saying this is not true. Like I'm sure some people have benefited from stern gurus, but in my own experience, my grandfather and also my current guru, they were never like that kind of guru. They just always empowered me and loved me. So my feeling is that gurus are gentle. In fact, they're masters of psychology. They know just what to say to make you feel like you are in the right spot, and then yet they know just what to say so you don't become complacent to guide you to the next thing. So I think a guru will never tell you that you're wrong. The guru will just say you're right, but still lead you to an even deeper understanding of something. That's at least how in our tradition how we learned. That's the way Sri Ramakrishna was. He always taught to the student. I find that gurus who are very aggressive are just lazy. They're not willing to use the student's own language and see from the student's point of view and try to gently take time with patience. Like my feeling is that they just want quick results and they want their student to like learn something at their pace, not at the student's pace. Hence they shout. That's my feeling. My feeling is it comes from ego. It's very easy as a teacher to get an ego, to be like, why is my student not learning? After all, they're reflection on me. You know how a parent can be with their child? Because they know that who they are is in a way like reflected in their child. So out of ego, they want their child to be better. I think it's that ego that makes people shout. That being said, though, it's hard for me to say this because Swamiji was a real shouter. How he could shout. He would really scold. He would make you cry. Like, so his brother disciples had suicidal ideation because of the way Swami Vivekananda handled them. But almost always he would cry afterwards and like call them into the room and apologize and say, "You who our master loved so much, you I have abused," like that. So he was complicated. It seems like Swami Vivekananda had a complicated relationship with anger and temper and with because he needed his work done. He had this like urgency. Thakur's work, and you are all just like not up to my standard. And so he would scream and shout in the name of the work, not to like make disciples better. When he came to teaching, he was always very gentle. But then again, Nivedita says, no, there were times when he was very aloof and distant. Read Nivedita's reminiscence on Swami Vivekananda. It's very important. It's called The Master as I Saw Him. There were moments when she wept and wept and wept and felt like he had abandoned her. There was a time when Sri Ramakrishna refused to look at Swamiji, like just never talked to him. So you guys, it's complicated. I'm sure there's something to be said for that kind of guru who is willing to like scold and shout. Swamiji maybe might have been that kind of guru. I don't know. I can't talk about it because I've never had that kind of guru. Even when I've like read Swamiji, everything's been so gentle. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Natalie. Um, so ultimately, I think it comes down to karma. Like we just get the kind of guru. Maybe it's not the guru that we want, but the guru that we deserve. It's the guru that Gotham deserves. Like in a sense, I mean that. Like if we are the kind of person who is very like lustful and like we have a kind of romantic vibe, which is again great, it might be better that we find that kind of guru. Like my friend I was telling you about earlier. That's what she wants, and so it's good that she has a guru who is like that. because that's the kind of thing that excites her. And so in that community also there's that vibe and she likes it. Other people like are all about money. So for them it's good that they have a money-minded like Vaishya guru because then in that community like they'll be stimulated. Other people are very egoic and like power. So it's good if they're in a community where there's like a charismatic guru type and there's like hierarchies and power and whatnot. Like everyone gets the guru that they deserve, the guru that they want. But I think we know what we deserve. We know what we shouldn't stand for. I think if you find anybody who doesn't meet your standards, there probably is other options out there. Like, and here's the problem. I'll say one more thing, and then I'll take more questions. Sorry, it's taking a long time. It's a topic very near and dear to my heart, because naturally the position that we're in. But this is, I think, my main thing that I want to say. Like, the reason why we make a mistake sometimes is maybe out of impatience. Obviously, sometimes out of timidity. We're so timid that we won't take a step. But sometimes it's out of impatience. It's like, I really want a guru. I'm really eager to have a guru. Just recently, someone reached out to me, and I almost immediately know what they want is not a guru. What they want is the guru concept. They read somewhere something about a guru, and now they understand that to succeed in spiritual life, they need a guru. But I don't think they actually want mentorship. I think they just want the guru, like because they were told that they need a guru to realize God. The very first text to me already, I immediately knew it's like I'm not sure that this person is looking for actual transformative mentorship. I think they just need to like check a box. The idea of like I have a Sadguru now. Like be my Sadguru. I need you to be my guru because I need a guru. Like you can tell in the beginning sometimes when you interact with people and like this happens a lot. Like so the idea of like do we want a guru because we have a concept about a guru or do we actually genuinely want mentorship and do we like something and again it's you can't there's no hard and fast rules. But if you're too eager because you think that you need some concept like Sadguru or something. I have to have a guru in order to be legit. I have to belong to a lineage, something like that. If you're too eager, you can sometimes jump into something too soon without the proper thing. But also if you're too timid. So I always err on the side of like just try. If you're too timid, nothing will happen. Just try, but don't ever forget that you have to reserve your right to walk away. Don't even think like, oh, I've invested so many years, or I've invested so much time, or I've invested so much energy, so much money. No, at any time, it's your spiritual life. It's between you and God. You don't owe anything to anybody. You don't owe anything to the members of the sangha. You don't owe anything to the person, the guru. You don't owe anything to the mission. You only owe it to yourself, to be honest, and to pursue God wholesome in a wholesome way. So remember, it's between you and God. No one should have any say in that. So at any point, you don't even need to explain yourself. Some people are like, oh, I want to leave this spiritual community. And then they send me an email like, how do I word my exit? I'm like, just walk out. Have you heard of an Irish goodbye? Just do that. Who cares? Just turn around and walk away. You know, this is something I've also learned recently. Sometimes people come up to me and they just say all sorts of things, and sometimes I'm like, oh, I should say something in return. But then Vijaya taught me this thing recently. It's worked like magic. I love it so much now. I do it gleefully. So someone comes up and starts shouting in my face for saying something, I just like listen for a while, and then I don't say anything. I was like, wait, I didn't know I could do that. You could just like not say anything and just walk away. And so that's a very powerful thing that I'm also myself learning now. Of just like, why do you need to justify anything to anyone? They will only hear according to their own understanding anyway. You don't need to apologize for leaving a community. So fortunately I've never had to leave a community, but I meet a lot of people who are in communities that have been a part of their lives for a very long time, but then they've realized something, or it's not working, or they've grown up or something, and by grace they've decided to leave. But that's also really messy because in leaving, somebody try to catch them also as they try to walk out the door. They're like, oh no, we're gonna lose a disciple. We're gonna lose, and especially if you're like a donor, be careful because if you're donating to that community, they more likely they want to grab you, right? Because is it you that they want or you're funding? And not only that, if you are a sevak, if you're a person in that community who does a lot of work, oh my God, the kind of control, you only really see it when you want to leave, actually, I think. It's when you want to leave a community that you realize how much power they want to have over you because they value your time, your energy, your presence, or your money or something. So it's complicated. Leaving is complicated. It shouldn't be. That's my point. Like leaving a spiritual community should not be complicated because you do not owe anything to anyone, to your Sangha members, to the quote unquote mission, or to God. It's just between you and God. So walk away. Why not? Don't even send a text. Who cares? Yeah, Polish goodbye, Irish goodbye, right? We have a different, I don't know, just whichever group you are condescending to, I guess. I don't know. Like, whatever group you have a problem with in that cultural context, it's that goodbye. Mm. So, that being said, um, I think this is very important that one time my guru's Guru Bhai, Swami Chetanananda, he took Diksha with his guru, Swami Shankarananda. It took him 6 years, to get that Diksha because Shankarananda was not very, he waited. And many people wait. If you ask them for Diksha, they'll say, wait 1 year just to test your commitment. So Swami Shankarananda, made this man wait 6 years to get this Diksha. And on the day of the Diksha, you can imagine his excitement, right? So it's customary usually when we take Diksha to give some dakshina, meaning some kind of financial donation to support the Guru's family and Sangha. And there's no fixed amount. So you just give according to your own capacity. Obviously, this man was a brahmachari, a monk. So it's not like he's going to give like 100 rupees or something. He doesn't have any money. So he borrowed 2 rupees from Swami Bodhatmanandaji. So he borrowed 2 rupees. With 1 rupee, he bought some sweets to give the guru. And the other rupee, he put in an envelope as dakshina. It's symbolic. Okay, so he goes and there's a diksha, he gets his mantra, and then he gives the sweets and he gives the envelope with the money. Then when he comes back, Swami Bodhatmanandaji, the one who lent him the money, asked him, so, did you give the dakshina? And this Swami said, yes, I gave the dakshina. Swami Bodhanandaji said, I don't think you did. And Swami Chaitanya, sorry, I shouldn't say his name, but this Swami said, no, 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 I did. I used 1 rupee to buy the sweets. I gave the sweets, and I used the other rupee to give as dakshina. And then Swami Bodhatmanandaji was like, no, you didn't give dakshina. And this Swami that I'm talking about now is like, what are you? I gave him. I actually like what you're questioning my honesty. Like I gave him the money. I didn't keep it. I put it in an envelope. I bought a sweet. I gave him. And then Swami Bodhatman said, oh, you gave him money. You think that's dakshina? You think you give your guru 1 rupee and you've paid off your debt to your guru? No, I say you haven't given your dakshina because the only real dakshina is your enlightenment. Until you get that, you have not paid off your guru. Don't think 1 rupee is going to do it. So I think that attitude is very important. Your guru doesn't want money from you. Of course, part of our tradition is you get a mantra, you give a little dakshina. Of course, that's part of the tradition. But what is that? The real dakshina is your liberation. So think of it this way. The only thing a guru wants from you is your own spiritual welfare, your own enlightenment. And so if you want to do right by your sangha members, by your mission, by your guru, by your community, just be an individualist, be an iconoclast, go about it your own way. Realize God. That's the only thing that matters. Realize God. And so if you need to walk out of the community to do that, because that's the only responsibility you have to yourself, to your own spiritual realization. Because that's for everyone, actually. So yeah. So Natalie Ma, good. It's helpful. It's okay. Yeah. Yeah. I feel so sad sometimes because like it's just so sad to hear all these stories like all the time. Like it's just so I'm surprised that it's so prevalent, that it's just so problematic to be in spiritual community almost always. It's like obviously any group of people that comes together for any reason is going to be problematic, but I think there's something about the vulnerability and the openness about spiritual life, the hopefulness about spiritual life that makes this particularly tragic to me. It's like this feeling of like Christ walking into the temple and feeling like there should be no commerce in my father's house kind of thing. It's like, oh my God, the brood of vipers, they say, Lord, Lord, yet they know me not. And these days, anybody on the internet can easily, just like present as something they're not. I told you that story one time where a friend came to visit me and she was following a content creator on the internet for quite some time too. And she really looked up to that content creator. Then we all went to Shivaratri here at the Hollywood Temple. And that, lo and behold, that content creator was there. Because apparently they all live in Los Angeles. So we run into these people sometimes. So this famous content creator was there at that Shivaratri. And at first she was really excited and she wanted to go and introduce herself to the content creator. But even before she had the chance to do so, she saw that this somewhat prominent guru person was getting into fights with people, like calling people bitch and things like that, like at the like just like being really aggressive to other people. And then this is very interesting. She saw this content creator taking photos of the altars and of the Homa and whatnot, and then posting it on her story as if she was hosting that event. Like she could see that because she was following her on Instagram, and she could see the post were not representing what was actually going on. This was a Shivaratri conducted by the Vedanta Society of Southern California in the Hollywood Temple. However, her post made it look like she was the organizer. She was the one who arranged this Homa, and these were all her people. Although all of those people most of them probably don't even know her. They all came to that thing. She wants it to seem like she has this thriving real life community. And once my friend saw that, how heartbroken she was. She was so disheartened. This person she looked up to turned out to be not what she thought that they were. And that's why the internet, I think, is particularly good for this kind of thing of like presenting in a way that's not real. So like genuine, real spiritual communities can be problematic. Internet communities can be problematic. But I think, in my opinion, internet communities are a little safer. They're a little safer than like the commune in Oregon. You know what I mean? Like it's a little safer than having a farm and all living together because there's still that kind of independence that you enjoy in your own life, where you have your own life and your own communities. But then you also have this thing where you can take refuge in it. But it's not like your only circle. You have your life also. And so that can be very grounding and good. So I really believe in the internet spiritual community. I think that's a new thing that's arising now, the possibility of coming together all over the world without having to be in one physical space and sharing a farm or something like that. That's unique. This Gurukula, I'm really inspired by the internet Gurukula idea. There's a kind of independence and a freedom in it that seems to me more spiritual. Like it's not as earthy, it's not as locked into like physical land even. Like I like that idea of it not even having a land. Somebody once said they wanted to donate a house and a property, and they were like, "Oh, I really want you to have your Gurukula, like this house. It can house." And they named some number of people, like this many people can stay here. And look, we have all this land. You can develop it. It won't just be for you. Your community can continue. And I turned it down. I was like, the last thing I want is a physical location, because I cherish the idea of this like guerrilla style warfare, this idea of just going, like I prefer to come to Atlanta and meet Zoe and everyone there, like just like all get together and descend like Bhutas and Ganas at some other person's place, like the Vedanta Center of Atlanta, and then do our thing and then just like go. And then next we're going to Gorilla, yeah, yeah, Gorilla. I like to go. Next we're going to New York, and we're just gonna like pop up somewhere. So I like this idea of pop up satsang, of just like moving from place to place to place without any one place to call our home. Why should I have a home? The world is my home. Father and mother are Shiva and Shakti. So why should I have a farm somewhere where we should all come and sit and like do this? That will easily turn into politics. Easily money will start to be an issue. Easily all this like romance and flirtation stuff will start. No, no. I want to stay light. I'm just passing through, that kind of feeling. So the internet, of course, has certain advantages, but also, of course, certain disadvantages. And therefore, some hybrid, I'm going for some kind of hybrid system where we actually, I know, Viranathaji, that's another problem. Another problem with this whole pop-up thing is like, who knows when or what? It's just whenever we're moved, we just do. And it's so annoying and so difficult. I know. Here's a pro tip though, ask Vijaya. If ever you want to know about something more grounded and like practical, like dates and stuff, ask Vijaya. She has dates. I don't yet. She knows, she knows. She's already gotten all the things and like that, so she knows. But yeah, like that's the thing. So I think balancing all of this, it just makes me so sad to think that like the ideals are high and you can't blame anybody for not meeting them, but we shouldn't forget them. We should maintain the ideals and we should try our best, I think. We should try our best to be the most ideal spiritual community. God knows there's a precious few. Yeah. Okay. Jaima, Jaima, Jaima. All right. So there's Manali and Shri. Yes, Ma, please.
Joyma, Joyma.
Jaima, Jaima.
First time saying whenever you're coming to Bombay or Kolkata, you have to tell us. We'll do pop-up satsang there.
Without a doubt.
Ma
Ma, are you
waiting.
in the group, the WhatsApp group? There's a just text me.
Not yet. I'm still trying to figure out all the patrons and everything, how to connect
Me
it.
too. But the WhatsApp group is nice because when we're in Bharat, we just like text. I'll just be like, oh, 2 weeks time I'll
How
be
do
there.
I connect to it?
Yeah, so I just put in the chat, this number. This is my number. It's my personal number. So you can just like
Okay,
text me on WhatsApp on that number and I'll add you to the group.
wonderful.
So,
Thank you, Joyma.
sure.
I'll do that. I just had one question, which I think you also mentioned in your session. First of all, thank you so much for all these sessions. Is that what do you exactly mean by viraha? In Bengali, we call it viroha. It means that they say that lot of saints in this path of sadhana have felt viraha from their ma or from Ma Kali. What do you exactly mean? I think you also touched down on that topic in between in one line that if Ma goes away also and comes back, that is also her play. So if you can, you know,
Yeah, it's a beautiful, it's very much in the Vaishnava world, right? This word like viroha, viraha. It's something Tulsidasa talks about. There's a beautiful line in Tulsidas where he says, even one tear cried in the name of Viraha is better than all the joys in the world combined. This idea that it's a pranic state, it's a configuration of bhakti where your whole being is aching and pining for God, and yet God feels elusively just out of reach. Now, the reason why you have that feeling is because you are certain of God's presence, but you are not merged into God as fully as you would like. But you know that she's there, just around the corner, if you will. No, you won't feel viraha if you don't know God exists. So, how do you know God exists? Because you must have experienced God. So, at some point, you have to experience God and be one with God in order to even experience viraha at all, the separation from God. Right? So, great bhaktas like Meera and of course Radha. Radha is the personification of viraha. These great bhaktas, they've attained such a high state of oneness with God that even one moment, as Narada says, vismarane, even one shanam, one moment of vismarane, not remembering, even one moment of parting from God. And this can mean even in the mind. Like, let's say I'm for one moment forgetting God. Say I'm doing something and I think about something else. I should feel a tremendous feeling of discomfort. That's called viraha. Yeah. And your question maybe theologically is interesting too. It's like, but where can Ma go? Right? Like, does Ma leave us? No, never. It's not like that. That's the deeper part of your question because one sadhu, one great Baba in the Kandya Swami line, he said something interesting. He said, Ma, I challenge you. I was very inspired by this. He said, I dare you. Try to go away from me. Bye, RNG, Jaima, Jaima. You go. Jao, he said. You go. What can you do? Where can you go? He said, I challenge you, Ma, to go away from me. You cannot, because wherever I am, there you are also. You are non dual. And if you're non dual, there is no sense in which you and I can be separated. So the power of viraha is that it's not absolutely actually true. It's not like I'm actually separate from God. From a non dual point of view, Ma never leaves me. She's always there. But I can leave her. That's the idea. I have the power as Ma to forget Ma. And the moment I leave her, she's always here. But the moment I leave her, if I truly love her, if I'm truly one with her, then the moment I leave her, this viraha comes. Think of it as a kind of polarity, the energy that's generated by duality after non duality. If I've experienced non duality, any kind of separation, any kind of duality would be like unbearable. Like a fish out of water, I will long to get back into that ocean of joy. Yeah, and it comes naturally through sadhana. That's the important thing to remember, that the more and more sadhana I do, the more and more viraha I feel. Right now, if I say pray to God with a longing heart, there's only to some extent only we can do that. We can't really do that. It's like, say somebody is not hungry and I say to them, be hungry. And what will happen? Will they be hungry? Probably not. You can't just be hungry like that just because you want to. You have to do something, maybe like go and exercise, and then maybe you'll get hungry. Or better yet, I just have to show you a McDonald's advertisement or something, because you know how they make it look so beautiful. So in like that same way, if you chant the names and glories of God, if you read the Bhagavata Purana, if you read Chandi like that, by thinking of God, it's like you're whetting your appetite. You think how great she is. Krishna, oh my God, Sri Krishna, how beautiful he must be. Where he walks, even the flowers are turning to follow him because he's the source of all light and fragrance. And then you just think about how attractive he is, how maddeningly beautiful Sri Krishna is, the embodiment of all beauty. And by reading about him, by thinking about him, by talking about him, it's like looking at a McDonald's poster. Your mouth starts to water. And then viraha comes just through just contemplating God. You start to want God, and soon that wanting becomes unbearable. It becomes a madness. And then you can call yourself a gopi. Then truly you'll leave everything behind for God. Viraha comes.
Thank you, Joyma. I think it's very, very beautifully explained. Thank you.
Jai Jai. It's a very beautiful thing, viraha. And Tulsidas was saying, one tear, just one tear of viraha, just nothing could compare to that. The joy of that. So even though it's described as a terrible feeling of anguish, vyakulata, another word for it's like this terrible feeling of just anguish, it's still better. The joy of that anguish is still sweeter than like anything in the world. So I think that's in one sense it might be the greatest possible thing you can experience in duality. In non-duality, of course, what is to be said? There's no experiencer, no experiencing, no experience. But in duality, the greatest possible experience you could have is called viraha. Jaima, Jaima.
Thank you, Joyma.
Jaima. And Tatiana, yes, I see. Thank you so much for reminding me. It'll take me a little bit, I think, to get through a lot of the messages, but I just need to sit down and do it one of these days. But yeah, like I said, like there's so many projects that we have. Like a physical space doesn't really call to me right now. Maybe one day maybe we'll have a physical space, but along the ideals that we just mentioned. But an online space also, it's important that Like we have communities all over, and that's what the WhatsApp groups are really for, to create like kind of communities everywhere so we can do this kind of pop-up satsang thing. So like then the funds, and this is interesting, the funds no longer go into creating a place. Like all the donations that we receive, traditionally what would happen is you would take those donations and you would fund them into a place. And then you know what happens? Then people will have to come to that place. So then people will have to pay money and get plane tickets and then come to that place and then take time out of their lives to be at that place. I want to flip the script. I want to say, instead of pouring all of these donations into a physical property, we can use these donations, I think, in a smarter way of like going to people, you know? Like to serve God means we don't expect God to come to us. If I am to serve God in the form of all these devotees, then why should I create a place and wait for God to come? I might as well go to God's place. And where is God's place? Wherever the fuck you guys live, you know? So the WhatsApp groups are for that. To know where in the world you all are, and without upsetting where you are, without needing you to move from where you are, to try our best with whatever we get through the generous sponsors that come and go, like through that to come to you, to be able to like fund an adventure out to you, but then more importantly, to be able to do something like together while we're there, which is that's the tricky thing about it. Because at least if you have a place, then you can just go there, right? Like it's a fixed place. But then going out to someone else's, it requires a bit of a different kind of finagling, where we either have to find a public place. You know, one time it was so cute. We were in San Francisco and I wanted to bring a satsang together. Let me just pause the recording just in case. Anyway, yeah. So this is how we've been doing it. Like when we went to Brampton, Ganeshwari was kind enough to open her house to us, so we could all just like descend into her house, and that was amazing because it was like, you know, just everyone just showing up, and then there's a place. But it was not so amazing maybe for her parents, because I remember her parents are like, who are all these dreadlocked people going upstairs to worship the devil? A good Christian household. They're wondering like, what is this? Or Ganeshwari, that was kind of funny. I remember. But yeah, so Ganeshwari, because of her kindness, we could, you know, meet at her place. And then when we go to San Francisco, because of Sumeruji and Chaitanya Devi, they have a beautiful, like actually like a farm actually with animals that are named Balaram and Krishna and Nandi and whatnot. So like they have a space, and it's a beautiful space with an awakened Murti, and then we all meet there. So like our San Francisco office, if you will, Sumeru is kind enough to like have us all meet in his house. So that's nice. So like this, the purpose of these groups is to like know where everyone is, and then to be able to coordinate things like this. So someone to be able to say like, oh, I can host, and then we can all just meet there, do a nice puja, maybe even install a ma. One of my missions actually is to install more Kalis in America. Because you know, a Kali Murti is like a window through which her grace can pour into the world. And so the more prana patishtas we can do, the more households will be blessed with her presence. And the more and more will she have an aperture, not that she needs it, but just from a ritual point of view, through which she can flow into this world, into this country. So that's kind of my side quest, as it were, to like do more prana pratishta ceremonies in houses where Ma Kali can be sustainably worshipped. So Sumeru's house, for instance, we performed a prana pratishtapana there for the first time. Many of them attended Kali Puja. This is the first Kali Puja they've ever attended, and it was nothing less than a prana pratishta. So it was a powerful moment, very beautiful with Homa. And now Ma is there. Ma Guyeshwari has been awakened in that house. So anytime we go, Ma is already there. So we can all meet and have satsang. So this is my project. So yeah, like text me here. I still have a lot to go through, but yeah, WhatsApp is probably better. But no, I think you know what? Natalie I know Natalie has done me a great service because she's mentioned she's apparently a text expert. Oh, this is good. This is really funny. Nicely done. But Natalie told me that here's what you can do. So if you go to server teachers and you click into this, and you go to the bottom, check this out. So this is the WhatsApp group invite. If you just click into this invite in the NISG like server teachers kind of tab, if you click into this, it will add you to like the community, and then you can find your spot. So like there's a Texas group, and then there's like so not every city is there. We did do a Euro gathering actually. We were in India December and January, and then this time last year we were in Europe. Our home base that time was in Amsterdam and also in Switzerland, in a haunted house in Zurich, which was great. So we did some pujas in that haunted house in Zurich. Um, and so we got together in Europe last year. I think next time we come to Europe will be 2026. I was hoping to do Europe this year, but it's looking more like an East Coast tour, I think, and Canada. So I'm probably going to spend much of the summer on the East Coast and also in Colorado. So it's going to be very US based, I think, this summer. But maybe next summer, 2026, I'm hoping to do Europe again. Yeah. So anyway, but again, all of you are also welcome here. Anytime you want to come, our apartment, it's not much. It's a one bedroom apartment in Westwood, but you know, we can make do. So do come here, and you're all welcome to come and stay here in our apartment and come to our pujas and whatnot. But yeah, so UK and EU, like It's on the map, 2026. That's our plan. So anyway, like, thank you all so much for your support. Not just for like funding and for like presenting your houses and making food. That's secondary. Like really just thank you for your enthusiasm and your commitment to like doing this together. It's just so fun. But yeah, having said all of that, that's hopefully in response to Tatiana and to um, all of those of you who I know. I've seen your messages. It'll just take me a little while, but I'm getting to it. I'm getting to it. Like soon. It's just so many. But slowly, the groups are coming together. The the right texts are being addressed at the right times. Like it's happening. Something is happening. I don't know. I have no plans because Ma seems to do everything. But something is happening. The community is growing and coming together in new and novel ways. And we're thinking of better ways not to repeat the mistakes of those who have come before. To be a community of like real integrity and real spiritual learning, true to the ideals of Sanatana Dharma according to its most traditional Gurukula ideals while still adapting for all the new opportunities that the internet and that travel affords us, you know? So I don't know, whatever's happening, who knows what the fuck is going on, but I think it's cool. I think it's really cool. I'm really fired up about it, and I'm so excited to share it with you and to be able to do it together. So thank you. Infinitely thank you. Jaima. Yeah, Jaima. Yes, Shriva. Yeah. Yes. Oh, and yeah, I remember, Shri, you can't unmute, so let me just go and read out your question. You sent it some time ago, I think. Let me just okay. Um Oh, okay. So literally the idea of Panchamakara should also include Maituna. Yeah, Maituna, no problem, with your Bhairava to achieve some level of attainment. I totally understand where you are coming from, but in certain practices, isn't it necessary to remove the line? Not to give some weird sense, but genuine question. Yeah, it's a really good question because um, it's complicated in the world of Tantra insofar as there are sexual practices. So, in what sense? That's where I think the nuance comes in. So, let me answer this now, hopefully, in a way that will be satisfying to you. But I see like you have more questions. Hold on, let me just try to get to all of your questions. Okay, here we go. You're saying, if it's Ma's choice, like literally the moral, immoral, the right and the wrong, why are there sinners? Why are there any moral constructs? There should be no heaven and hell. There should be no good and bad karma. Yes, there are no moral constructs. There is no heaven, nor is there hell. And there is no good nor bad karma. Right? That's the answer. You've answered your own question. It's like, yeah, it's Ma's will. Ma is absolute. And since Ma is absolute, there's no duality. There's no good or bad. There's no heaven or hell. There's no right or wrong. There is only Ma. So the saint who feeds the whole village is powered by the same energy of the Devi as the guy who brutally abuses and murders children. Yes, absolutely, you're right. You're absolutely right. Do you see? How mind blowing is this? Dharma is nothing compared to moksha. Like, dharma goes out the window when you have a spiritual realization like this. So, that's a really good point. It's like, it's hard to understand. So, we'd say, no. Until I have this realization of Advaita, like, I should do my best to be dharmic. But at the same time, why should I judge someone for being adharmic? Do you see this double standard that we're applying? I hold myself to the standards of dharma, but I will never hold anyone else to that standard. You see, is that interesting? Like, you don't judge anybody, you don't find fault with anybody, you don't have a problem with anyone or anything, because you understand that the serial killer who's brutally murdering and abusing and killing, that person is also Ma. And so too is the saint feeding everyone. You know that story? There was a sadhu, he was walking, and he saw that someone was about to be beaten up by some gundas, you know. So the sadhu said, "Hey, stop! Don't beat this person up." And naturally, because he was a good Samaritan about it, because he got involved, he got beaten up. So the gundas nicely trashed him within an inch of his life. And then later, his brother monks, his gurubhais came and resuscitated him and gave him some milk to drink. And slowly he, kind of came back to consciousness. And they asked him, "Do you know who we are?" Just to test whether or not he was concussed. Like, do you know us? Do you know who we are, brother? And then, you know what he said? He said, "I do know who you are. You, as he said, you are the one. The one who beat me with sticks earlier is the same one who's feeding me milk tonight." Like that idea. He knows the same hand beat him and the same hand fed him. This is a saint. This is a person who's gone beyond all dharma. Dharma, adharma, they've gone beyond. Vairagya, avairagya, Aishwarya, anashwarya. Literally in the Kali Puja, there are mantras like this. Oh, mother, you are beyond dharma, you are beyond adharma. You are beyond good, you're beyond bad, you're beyond shuddha and ashuddha, beyond pure and impure. So, yes, I think what you're articulating here, Shrima, is the non-dual revelation that every single thing is Ma. Stand back, regard the whole thing as a beautiful painting, knowing that nothing affects you, be mad with joy even at evil, seeing it all as Ma's play. And if you can do this, you will commit no evil. If you really can see the world like this, you will only really see it as Ma and you'll only serve. Because you can't help. Love makes you a servant of Ma. So yeah. Next. The next question here is even subtler and very, very good question. Oh my God, good luck to me. But the question is, regarding having a romantic relationship with Guru, I mean, I understand how Guru is equivalent to God, but aren't spiritual practitioners sometimes in love with their deities? Yes. Like Andal and Goda Devi with Perumal. Like morally, it's wrong. I don't think it's morally wrong. I think that's okay. You guys, please, please don't get me wrong. I want to make a very important point here. I don't mean to be prudish about any of this, okay? Like you understand that this is a place of like maximal sexual liberation. In that, I literally support literally any possible thing you could do. Even if it's horrifically wrong in the eyes of the law. I'm for it. You know how we said we want to support women's rights, we also want to support their wrongs? I don't believe in morality. I mean, there's a place for it, but heck, you're just going to do what you're going to do. And in some places, morality is not ethics, it's unethical morals, right? Like in some places, it would be immoral if you didn't submit your daughter to female genital mutilation. You know what I mean? It like violates the codes of conduct of that society. It violates your covenant with God if you don't chop off the foreskin of your child's cock. Like, what the fuck? Like, chill. In what sense is that, in what sense is legality, morality, and ethics all linked? Sometimes just because something is moral, just because something is legal, doesn't mean it's ethical. And just because something is ethical doesn't mean it's good for you. Sometimes the unethical thing is good for you. You see? So in that sense, I could very legitly be criticized as an agent of chaos. I don't mind it. Because in one sense, I'm saying it's for the plot. I like genuinely want to empower people to like do whatever the fuck they want, even if that means genocides or whatever, because it's for the plot, you guys. Like whatever. Like Ma does what Ma wants to do. So I don't believe in morals or laws or anything like that. Obviously, you should respect the laws where you are, in the place that you are. Um, it's better for you if you do. But in some places, those laws must be overthrown, right? When those laws like forbid gay marriage or something like that, those laws must be challenged. So dharma, importantly, is a fluid concept. And so this is a very scary thing to hear because we want dharma to be absolute, right? We like to think absolutely about laws. But if you want to be dharmic, don't eat mushrooms or leeks. Oh my God, what could be adharmic about mushrooms or leeks? I don't know. But mushrooms and leeks apparently don't eat them. And so in our tradition, we say eat whatever you want because it's not what goes into your mouth. It's a problem. What comes out, we say. But like, here's the thing. I don't know. I don't know that there's like a moral wrong to like sleeping with the guru or sleeping with members of the sangha. I don't think it's morally wrong. I don't think you can regulate against it through dharma or through law, nor should you. I'm just pointing out, while it's perfectly okay and everybody is empowered to do whatever they want, I'm just pointing out that in most cases it can lead to some very complicated things. So I'm just saying, like in our community, let's play it safe. It's better not to get it, not to say it's morally wrong. Like I think that's the first point I want to make here. So I don't think it's morally wrong to be in a romantic relationship with your guru or with your guru bai or your guru bhagini. Insofar as I don't think anything is really morally or dharmically wrong. So therefore, let's replace the idea of dharma. Let's replace it with swadharma. Swadharma means that action which brings you closer to God is a good action, and that action which takes you further from God is perhaps not your best action. Doesn't mean that that action is not good for somebody else. The same action for someone else might be adharmic, for you might be dharmic. And this is why Varna, this is why I defend caste. And this is going to be a bit complicated because many of us have different ideas about caste. So some of us, when we think of caste, we only think of caste in the political way that it's been practiced under Mughal rule and under British rule, and maybe also pre-Mughal rule when it became degenerate. We don't think of caste along the lines of the Bhagavad Gita or along the lines of Dharma or along the lines of what Swamiji had to say. Swamiji defended caste, Sri Ramakrishna defended caste, and caste is just the idea that we're all different and we're all equally great, each in our own place. So what might be Dharma for one caste is Adharma for another caste. And that's just the way it should be. So I would say there are as many castes as there are people. And each one of us is a caste unto ourselves. And you know what caste means? Species. You think what's dharmic for a human is the same as for a bird, and a human is supposedly better than a bird? No, they're different. And so why should the Vaishya be better than the Shudra or the Kshatriya be worse than the Brahmin? They're all great. But for a Brahmin, the dharma for a Brahmin might be cowardice for a Kshatriya, as Krishna points out. See, Arjuna wants to be a Brahmin. He's like, oh, I just want to go and beg my food and be simple and just meditate and teach spirituality. Hare, you are a warrior defending the kingdom. Like, if you decide to be a Brahmana, Not to say being a Brahmana is bad, it would be cowardice because that's not your role. So Krishna, he points out that it would be better to do your dharma, your swadharma badly than it would be to do someone else's dharma well. So insofar as there's such thing as swadharma, notice I'm making a case against absolute morality. I don't believe in it. I believe only in desire and acting upon desire. I desire God, so I want God. But if somebody desires chocolate cake, eat it. Why create all sorts of laws and morals around like chocolate cake and deny yourself the experience and become so repressed and then eat it secretly in the dark later? You're gonna eat the chocolate cake. Let's just be real. If you want chocolate cake, if Ma wants chocolate cake through you, you're gonna eat the chocolate cake. The only question is whether you're gonna be honest about that and open about that, or whether or not you're gonna do it behind closed doors. Maybe, I don't know. Some people just won't eat the chocolate cake. And I think what a sad thing that Ma didn't get a chance to explore a particular possibility within them. So, insofar as laws and morality are inhibiting your self-expression and your ability to pursue your swadharma, down with them. But they are needed to an extent. They're part of the game, part of the fun. So, respecting the laws of your country, and above all, respecting other individuals as gods. I think that's where we can say dharma is best practiced with regards to others. It's about interpersonal relations. And I should pursue my desires only insofar as they don't take away from the ability of other people to do the same. So Milton's harm principle. You're free to do whatever you want. No, sorry. Not Milton. Right? Who's Mills. Oh my God, sorry. John Stuart Mills. Mills' harm principle. I was talking about Milton earlier, so I got confused. Mills. The principle of like just Alistair and Natalie, your homeboy, he was British. The idea that like you do whatever you want. Freedom is absolute until it harms another individual. So it's a harm principle. But again, like I was saying in that very complicated discussion in the women's empowerment and menstruation thing, like there I was saying, but who's to say what really harms or helps? Every action is a mixed bag. So do what thou wilt, right? Aleister Crowley had that little axiom, like love under law or something, do what thou wilt, or whatever. Like that's a tantric dictum. Like just do whatever you want. Like fuck it. That being said, there are no morals here. I'm not saying it's morally wrong, but like yeah, spiritually creating this boundary isn't it something that will stop spiritual practice beyond a level? Yeah, maybe. I think you're absolutely right here, Ma. Like, absolutely, there's room for this attitude too. And somebody had this attitude for Sri Ramakrishna, the Mathura Bhava, this attitude of like they were in love with Sri Ramakrishna. They felt like Sri Ramakrishna was Krishna and she was Radha. And this wasn't Sarada Devi. It was like this other woman who would like come. And some of the boys would chase her away because they didn't like the kind of energy that she brought into the space. But Girish was her staunch defender. And they like even like dressed her up and snuck her in so she could see Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was very kind to her. He loved her. He felt like that was perfectly appropriate. But to keep the integrity of the Sangha, they didn't generally like to encourage that attitude. But like that was fine. Like that was perfectly fine for that person to have. But I think in one sense you can have it without involving the other person. Like you can feel romantic attraction for your teacher or for your deity, but that's where it ends. Like through that romantic attraction, you can cultivate great devotion for them, but you don't need to enter into a romantic relationship with them naturally. So therefore, I think when it comes to the Panchamakaras, I am fully in favor with them. I practice them fully in favor of them. I practice them myself quite a bit, but also I'm married. That's another thing. So like that's the thing. It's like I have a Bhairavi, right? Like, and she is actually my Bhairavi. In that, I do those sadhanas with her, but like exclusively her. And like someone like, I won't say names here, but there are some spiritual teachers who have lots of consorts. They create a harem of consorts, where they're like, okay, so I have a Bhairavi, but then you will be my other spiritual wife. And then and they don't say wife, they say consorts. And in the Tibetan Buddhist world, of course, in the Shaiva world, there is very much this, and more so I think in the Tibetan world, because there are not these like Vedic ideas of monogamy. Like there's a bit more polyandry and polygamy in the Tibetan world. And this is something Swamiji discovered, Swamiji was kind of puritanical about marriage. He was a sannyasin, so naturally he's very idealistic. And in India, marriage and monogamy, for at least in modern times, is very associated. Not to say there isn't a lot of adultery. Obviously there is. Like, obviously in a monogamous marriage structure, you're going to have people visiting brothels and like people having affairs with uncles and like, the person, the wife might have an affair with the husband's brother, and the husband might be visiting a brothel. Like, obviously I'm not saying that this monogamous ideal was carried out to its fullest logical conclusion, but it's an ideal. In the Vedic times, we saw people had more than one wife, maybe. Maybe Abhinavagupta had two consorts. Like, again, I'm saying even in an Indian context, in a Sanskrit literary context, we have lots of examples of non-monogamous relationships. And I think not just polygamous ones, polyandry also. Like, I mean, polygamy, of course, in in the Vedas, we sometimes find rishis with two wives or something like that. And Abhinavagupta is often depicted with two consorts. Who knows? They could have been family members that just did the laundry and took care of him or something, or they could have been Bhairavis that he was practicing these kinds of things with. Perhaps, who knows? Or they just like depictions of Ida and Pingala. So from one point of view, he didn't have two consorts, and exactly that's where I'm going next. And there's examples not just of polygamy, as you can see with our Vedic rishis and whatnot, like Yagnavalkya separating his wealth between his two wives, or like the kings. Obviously, kings would have more than one consort, more than one wife, like that, as we see in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. So we know the Kshatriyas and Arjuna, he had more than one wife, like he had Draupadi. Draupadi was his wife, but he also had another wife, interestingly enough. And Sri Krishna had like some 16,000 wives or something like that, and he was able to satisfy them all. Like there are stories like this where a prince, a king, might have more than one partner, like a harem of sorts, many consorts. A sage, yeah, some number like that, 16,108. He had 16,108 wives, and he was able to satisfy them all because he's like the lover boy par excellence, right? Like Krishna. Krishna can do this because he's Krishna. That's his unique kind of manifestation. But anyway, oh,
Yeah, Mas for me, like it's 3 a.m. here. I kind of snuck out just to ask you questions.
okay, go for it, go for it.
So I'm so sorry for bothering you with a lot of questions. But like I had this one thing that like if something is specifically designed to make you attracted towards it, like you said this example of like if you want to eat a chocolate cake, just go ahead, eat a chocolate cake, right? So, what if there are some drugs, right? Like some people get really addicted with heroin or like whatever drugs there are, and that drug is essentially designed to keep them hooked. And so is Maya in some way, right? Like life, the cycle, the constant cycle of life and death is to make us hooked with all this relationship. So, how do we resist the urge to commit? Where do we draw the line? Do we just commit, or where is the point where we cut off?
Really good question, Ma. And my position is very extreme. Like I recently posted on Instagram about like chanting mantras that you haven't been initiated into, and I sort of gave the green light for them. I was like, look, if you want to approach God, you should do so in whatever way calls to you. So if you find a mantra on the internet and you're wondering whether or not you should chant it, um, and it says that you shouldn't chant it unless you have diksha, then I say might as well just do it, just chant it. And I'm not saying that a reaction won't occur. So in that post, I think I mentioned like there could be insomnia, extreme hunger and arousal, there could be dissociative episodes, maybe you might even die or go mad. Like that's what I said. Like that was a disclaimer there. I'm not denying that there are serious consequences to action. A lot of dukkha usually comes about when we pursue sukha because all joy comes wearing a crown of thorns. But in one sense, I'm saying it's okay. As long as you like read the fine print, like, oh my God, I could die. I could be a lifelong addict to something. And then accept that. I think it's okay. Like it's okay because like what's one life? If anything, you give one life and now you've learned. So with the reincarnation model, you know that if you just live and even if your life is a wholly wasted project, and of course, a human birth is rare, etc., etc., all of that is also true. But like now you've learned, you've explored one possibility and until you do it, you'll never know. So I saw a meme recently where somebody is about to put a fork into a socket, and it's an animation by an animator. I wish I could cite it for you. It's not coming to mind, but if somebody knows what I'm talking about, it'd be nice to cite the source. But Shukra Deva is there as like the mom, and Shani Deva is sitting in the chair like a dad, and we're the child about to stick the thing in the socket, right? And Shukra Deva says, "Honey, don't do that. You'll get hurt." And Shani's like, "Wait, wait, 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 wait." He's like, "Go ahead, go ahead." Like Shani is encouraging this guy, and he goes, puts it, he gets it, and Shani laughs. Ha 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 ha. Now you won't do that again. Bet you you're never gonna do that again. That's the idea. That's how Shani teaches. Shani Deva, the influence of Saturn, or you could say how Ardra Nakshatra teaches. I'm Ardra. So like in that Rahu kind of Ketu world, it's about like almost like yeah, you might die, you might go mad, all sorts of horrible things can happen. You can be a lifelong addict. Good, good, because then you'll know, then you'll learn, and so if you want something, yeah, as Paula Ma is testifying here, it's like first-hand experience. It's just, nothing like it. Don't take anyone's word for it. Try and see for yourself. All of spiritual life is like that. Don't you want to experience God? I mean, you could have just taken someone's word for it, but no, you want to experience God. So I would say, yeah, you're right, Ma. Things are designed to hook you, like Instagram and like chocolate cake and like, you know, um, we have a lot of like sexual sort of, what do you call it? Like, hang-ups because of our advertising and our media and our food consumption and the way that we look upon one another. So like yeah, like these could lead to very addictive behaviors. But honestly, Ma, I think at one point, like you say, where do you draw the line? You just kind of snap out of it. It's like the peanut butter approach. If you eat a whole jar of peanut butter, you'll be sick of peanut butter. You'll never want to eat it again. So similarly, Sri Ramakrishna says, eat the hog plum, but then come back for the cure. Sri Ramakrishna said, I never told people to renounce the world. He says, I never tell people to renounce. I tell them to go and enjoy the world, to eat the hog plum, and then come back to me for the cure. He has faith, he has faith that if you just try it for yourself, you'll see that it's all skin and bones. There's no real meat there. So it's called hog plum, and sometimes you get a kind of a belly ache if you eat it, but it's very attractive. That thing about hog plum, you can Google it, hog plum. It's very attractive looking, so you want to eat it. But when you eat it, you find it's just a seed. It's barely any flesh there. And after you eat it, you get like acidity in your stomach. Yeah, Viranatha is still enjoying peanut butter. Enjoy peanut butter. So we say in the tantric world, I guess a life affirming attitude, which we find in the Vedas, is like, look, live your life honestly. Do whatever you want, but don't forget to do lots of spiritual practice and don't forget to bring God into it. So, like, if you want to have sex, make it into a puja. That's what we say. Like instead of just like having sex, why don't you take some time to like really worship your partner as a deva, as a devi, really feel like you are Shakti and really feel like he is Shiva, and then or she is Shakti also, and then just go for it.
Um, uh, like, sorry to interrupt you, but
Mhm.
how do I put it? Like, the whole concept of completely indulging in this particular life is based on the premise that there is a concept of reincarnation.
Yeah.
There are like endless cycles of life and death. But again, coming back to the premise of unless you experience it firsthand, you will never know that this process has happened. I personally never felt that I had a previous life. Personally would never feel that I'll have a next life. So, on what basis of this premise should I be acting on my urges? Or like the whole point of karma also. Like you've given me this example that yeah, people are born with diseases, people are born in certain poverty conditions, some are spiritual, some are not spiritual, just based on their past karmas, and the cycle repeats. So aren't we like literally blaming the victims in this situation just
Yes, we
on the
are.
premise that they have done something in their
Yes.
past life?
Yes, we are. Because
So,
otherwise, we'd have to blame God, which is a much less favorable position. So either I did it to myself or God did it to me, or worse, it just happened randomly. And sometimes that third option is the worst. Like, if something happens to me and it's for no reason whatsoever, God didn't do it, I didn't do it, it just kind of happened, that's kind of worse for some people. Some people really hate the idea that they are the author of their own misery. So for them, they much prefer to think that God did it. And some people actually are empowered by the idea that what I enjoy today, I set into motion yesterday. It's like empowering to know, like, if everything I've suffered in my life is the result of my own hand, then everything that I will enjoy in future lives is also similarly the result of my own hand. I am not tyrannized by some god, nor am I tyrannized by the law of randomness. Like, can you imagine? It's so scary. It's like all these good things happen randomly for no good reason. And then in the future, maybe all sorts of bad stuff will happen randomly. Or God is like randomly good or randomly bad. No, no. I prefer the view that there are no victims. So I can't call it victim blaming even. It's taking responsibility that the life that you have right now is directly caused by everything you did in the past. But you can't blame yourself for that because you did what you did based on what you knew, and you did it for your own reasons which you thought were good. It's not your fault. Like,
but
huh?
isn't this reasoning purely for your personal psychological comfort?
Yes, and I'm saying
Is
a lot
this
of it can come down to that. Like there are so many different models, right? Which one will you choose?
Mhm.
Well, the one that gives you the inspiration to make progress in spiritual life. In other words, the one that most empowers you. So, how do you decide between one school of philosophy or the other? Choose the one that strengthens you. And like I said, swadharma means we're all different. So we all respond to different things. People are so angry at me sometimes because I say different things at different times to different people. And Swamiji did, Ramakrishna did, like that's why I'm just quoting them. And so people say, which is it? Are you free will? Are you determined? No, Baba, you don't get it. Nothing is true that can be expressed on the level of language, but all of these are true in that they can all be helpful. They're instrumentally true. So you're right to point out, you're so careful to point this out, Ma, that like ultimately, am I just discerning based on that which is most self-serving? Yes and no. Not self-serving in that it like just allows me to default into complacency, but that which empowers me to actually take up my life with dignity and do something about it. So like if it empowers me, then it's true. If it disempowers me, it's untrue. So hold on to that which empowers you as provisionally true until you can go beyond all language. So, and all thoughts and all reality until you attain God. So, that being said, you're right. It is victim blaming only if you think we are victims, but we are not victims. Swami Vivekananda said, every breeze that brushes the face of the sinner, and every blow, no, he said there's no blow that is not deserved. That was the flame. There's no blow that's not deserved. And every breeze that brushes the face of the thief and every disturbing thought in the arhat's mind are both caused by past actions. So he said, thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Then what does he say? Cease lament. Because thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on, rejoice, cease lament, let go thy hold, sannyasini bold, and say Om Tat Sat Om. Yes, everything here I caused. Good. And I'm happy. I would do it again too. Say, can you imagine? Because what? I didn't make any mistake. Nothing is wrong. See, that's why morality would suck here. Because then you'll be like, I'm suffering because I did something bad. I am bad. No, there's no such thing as bad. You just did what you wanted at that time based on what you knew to the best of your ability. Who can fault you for that? So I don't think anybody is to blame for anything, whether an action in the past or in the present. There's no shame, no guilt here. It's just you just do whatever you did. And then now here's the outcome, and it's impersonal. You're not being punished. I don't think karma is like about punishment. By the way, the Saudi Arabian prince is born into a lot of wealth. Are they being rewarded for some past good act? Well, it depends on how you look at it because their life might be really traumatic because of that money, right? Like they have no friends because everyone only wants them for their money, or they didn't really get into college by their own merit because they just bought their way in, and then they live a life of like indulgence that feels just so like unfulfilling. So it's a curse in a sense if you look at it from a certain point of view. Another family might be incredibly poor, but the child grew up in the atmosphere of Vedic hymns. Which one was blessed? Which one was cursed? Again, it's totally relative. Because it's relative, I can't say there were good actions or bad actions. I can't say something was a reward or something was a punishment. It just is. So it's not victim blaming because victim blaming means blame bad. But there's no bad, so there's no blame. And there's no victim because you are the one that's the author of your action. So yes, you're right. In one sense, you can call it victim blaming because everything I experienced, I actually brought on to myself. But on the other hand, because of that, I'm not a victim. And because of that, no one who to blame, who to praise.
So regarding this whole thing, there is spiritual discipline, right? When you do practices like
Yes.
spiritual practices, you need to follow certain rules.
Yes,
For
yes.
example, yesterday we discussed about Dhumavati's puja and Vidhi. Like there is a strict rule, there is a strict moral code, and there are urges. So what if like I'm supposed to be on an upvasam or like whatever, and then I randomly get this insane urge to just devour a chocolate cake.
Yeah.
So, which urge is my urge? Like, should I be doing my practice? Should I eat a chocolate cake? What? Like, is spiritual discipline and going through a path of this rigorous practice, going in the path of divine, is something that should be void of all the urges? How do you
Yeah.
balance this out?
If you had a father type teacher, they might say to you, no, Shrima, don't eat the chocolate cake. Do your upasana. This will make you feel strong. Every time you say no to the chocolate cake, you are saying yes to your higher self. So, no, ma, don't eat the chocolate cake. Do your upasana. But unfortunately, you've fallen into the clutches of a motherly kind of environment in which we say, ma, eat what you want to eat. Do your sadhana, but eat what you want to eat. We have no don'ts. We only have do's. Now, do sadhana, do intense sadhana, not because you have to, but because you want to. See,
Right.
who has the best discipline in the world? I think it's a drug addict. Do you know why? Because they'll do anything and everything to get their fix.
Right,
I
right.
prefer to be a drug addict of God. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think the best person in the world who will attain God is one who wants God, not one who thinks that they should want God and then follows rules about do's and don'ts. It won't work. I don't think it's sustainable. Like if you want to eat a chocolate cake and you don't, will you be meditating on God? Heck no, you'll be meditating on your chocolate cake. You'll sit there doing your upasana, but it will be chocolate cake upasana. So might as well just like put the mala down, take the chocolate cake, make it into a puja. Like say, Ma, you are in the chocolate cake. I want to eat chocolate cake, as Viranatha is pointing out. That must be because you want to taste chocolate cake through me. Who is eating? Me or you? You. You are the Jataragni in my belly. You are the fire in me who will digest the chocolate cake. You are the samskara in my past life that made me want the chocolate cake. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take the chocolate cake. I'm going to make it really good. I'm gonna put some frosted sugar on top, whatever. I'm gonna put some raspberry on it. Then I'm gonna plate it really nicely. By the way, my guru taught me a very important lesson. I was sitting with him for dinner and I had a burrito, but I didn't really want to eat it. I wasn't really that hungry, and I really just wanted to sit with my guru. I wasn't interested in dinner. And I sat next to him, and I just sat there with my burrito, and he said, Baba, you didn't heat it up? I said, No, Maharaj, it's okay. It's okay. I'll eat it cold. And he said, When you eat, eat well. And he made me go and heat it up, so that it would be delicious. I learned something from that. That live well, eat well, like have a wonderful, joyful life. Otherwise spirituality is just dry suicidal advice. Otherwise, like, I'd just kill yourself then. If you're gonna deny thyself, if you're not gonna just whatever, what the fuck? Why do I? So then here's what I say: you make the plate nice. You put the chocolate cake on it. You put some nice dust on it. You put the sugar, and you put nice, and then just however you like. Then some chocolate syrup or whatever. Then maybe with a nice glass, whatever. I don't know. Then you put it in front of Ma. You say, Ma, you are the desire. You are the cake. You are the one. Brahmarpanam, Brahmahavir, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam, like that. Do a puja, offer it, prana, swaha, apanaya, swaha vyanaya, swaha udanaya. So do a whole puja around it. And then when it's time to eat it, oh my God, really eat it. Just be like present with the cake. Say your mantra, say Jai Ma Kali, and put the cake in your mouth. And just as you eat the cake, meditate on the cake as an immediate form of Ma. You know? Then you'll see, not only do you get your cake, but you get to eat it too.
One final thing, one
Yeah.
literally so sorry. So, like in your lecture, you were mentioning that you stopped calling the sadhakas as Devi and instead you resorted to Ma because you didn't want the incest feeling. It's a very sensitive topic and it's a very weird topic to touch. But yeah, so you call your sadhakas as Ma, like Sri Ma or like Myra Ma, right? So, recently, like heard, like I've read a Purana where when Devi created the entire universe, she created Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh.
Mhm.
And when she approached Vishnu and Brahma, they denied that they don't want to be part of the sexual union to create the universe. But then Shiva was like, despite your Mahima, since you have asked me to oblige into the creation of this universe, I will be your partner.
Mm.
And they both had this Leela going on. So,
Yes,
like,
yes. And that's exactly what Sri Ramakrishna said too to his wife, Sarada Devi. Remember, Sri Ramakrishna was not interested in any kind of romantic relationship. And he even said in that reading that we just did that he was not really interested in worshipping Ma along the lines of the hero, the Veera Bhava. He said, I prefer the attitude of a child. Now, when Holy Mother, as a young woman of like 18, 19, like that, came to him for the first time in Dakshineshwar, she came to see whether he was really mad or not. He found him so loving and courteous and willing to take her in right away. And then he said to her, he said, Look, I don't really want to be in a romantic relationship. I don't really want to have like sex and stuff. But if you so desire it, then I am at your service. Right? We read that in the Swamiji reading, My Master also. So he said to her, Ma, if that be your will, then I am at your service. He said that to his own wife, right? So
right.
I guess like okay, the point I was making earlier, like in response to this, with regards to like the polygamy, polyandry standards, like obviously in India, like Draupadi has 5 husbands like that, and even her husbands, like Arjuna, might have another wife like that. Kings and princes and maybe even brahmanas might have had more than one wife.
Than one wife.
Generally, we prefer in Indian marriage the idea of monogamy. And so Swami Vivekananda had a bit of like a shock because when he went to Tibet, he was staying with some Tibetan people and he found that there was one wife, but she was shared amongst all the brothers. And he kind of like was scandalized by this and he took it up with them. He was like, "What?" Because it would be considered immoral in his country for something like that to happen. But then the Tibetan said, "But in our country, it would be immoral for one brother to have something and not share it amongst the others." So like that idea. So the idea of like, if this is my wife, how can I say it's my wife? After all, these are my brothers. Like what is mine is theirs. It's not mine anymore. She's a human being, and so why should she like? So you can make a whole kind of case for it. And Swamiji, he realized, oh my God, there's relativity, and he brought it up. In his Karma Yoga, he talked about moral relativity, and it all comes back to the Gita. This idea of swadharma, like what's right for Krishna and Arjuna, is not necessarily what's right for some Brahmana or some Vaishya. I think if Krishna was teaching the Gita to a Vaishya or a Brahmana, he might have a very different Gita in mind. So in that story, in that Purana, you're right. Like I can imagine Sri Ramakrishna standing before Ma, and Ma's like, no, this is something I want to do. This is important to me. And he said, right? Swamiji said he said it. His biographers said, he said, I am at your service. Swamiji's exact words in describing Sri Ramakrishna were that, I am at your service. He was ready, willing, and able to do his duties as a husband. But remember, the ideal is like a kind of monogamous setting, which might not be universally applicable. But so in my case, I have a Bhairavi. I have my wife, who I'm married to, and she's my Bhairavi. So I think like that's kind of what I'm encouraging. Like if those people who want to participate in those sadhanas should do so, following the laws of their country, of course, to the best of their ability, given that they're insofar as they're just laws, but they should do so in a way that's consensual and not. I think what I'm speaking out against is this tendency of spiritual teachers sometimes to use the very legit and very valid Panchamakara system in order just to sleep with their students, like slake their lust, when they're not really interested in sadhana. This is a sadhana, right? And by the way, it's not so easy. Like Shiva Lata Mudra, it's so difficult. Like it's like 3 hours of doing japa, and like it's not even about sex anymore, really. It's like it's sadhana, you know. But even if it is about sex, like and about chocolate cake, then you can make a sadhana out of that. So I think you should say your mantra all the time. While one is self-pleasuring, while one is making love with someone, while one is eating chocolate cake, while one is on the toilet, while one is waiting for the bus, like say your mantra all the time and divinize life. Divinize each moment. Eat to God, drink to God, fuck to God. Actually fuck God. Like see your spouse as God. But then all of that is contextualized within the foregoing discussion of like consensual relationships without power asymmetries. So what I find is these guru types, and Abhinava Gupta talks about them, and it's there also, and I'll come to you in a second. These guru types, what they do is they'll say, oh, you know what? I want to practice this sadhana and I need consorts. So you'll be consort number one, you'll be consort number two, you'll be consort number three. And essentially, what this spiritual teacher has done is they've assembled a harem, and even if it's all consensual, my problem with it is it's not really, I think, in the interest of sadhana. Although they're willing to use the concept of tantric sadhana as a way to justify like taking money from people or like taking sex from them. But yeah.
So, like in this question, like if I have to elaborate, so how do you discern any relationship? For instance, you have your wife or like husband, and you don't look at your husband with a Veera Bhava or like I don't know what's a feminine version for it, and you see him as like a father figure, or
Yes,
if
yes.
you go to any other relationship like a brother or father,
Yeah.
and you have a different ideology in your mind. So imagine like you're absolutely void of any moral construct that you see God in everywhere, and there is a point of time where you are in love with your God, or like there's a point in your time where you're so deeply devoted to the God that you see God as your mother. So if you're seeing the your husband as your God, and you're seeing God as your mother, and you're seeing your husband as your mother, so are you literally fulfilling your marital duties, or are you
That's a good
seeing
question. That's a really good question because Sri Ramakrishna, it's in the name arguably of marital duties that he's willing to like make love to his wife, right? That's why he says, I'm at your service to fulfill his marital duty. Although he admits his attitude is that of a child to its mother. So he said, I look upon you as mother. He admitted that. The first meeting, like arguably, he said to Holy Mother, like, I look upon you as mother. This is the bhava that I have, and if you want to like enter into worldly life, in that, he's not judging it or anything. I don't think he's saying like, yeah, I'm down, like, in the name of marital duty, in the name of duty. But now, importantly, Holy Mother wasn't interested in that. She was interested in maintaining that bhava. And Sri Ramakrishna would say like, it would be very mature actually for a husband and wife to at some point start regarding each other, or husband and husband, or wife and wife, or like not to use a gender normative here, but like it would be very good for two partners to regard themselves as siblings, like as spiritual partners, and then they don't have sexual relations anymore because they don't look at each other as bodies or something. Like it seems like in the Indian marital system there's this idea of developing spirituality together, and eventually maybe you won't, in the beginning maybe you have lots of sex, that'd be great to have. You have to explore it, right? But then after all this Kama Sutra stuff, after you explore all the joy of sexuality, maybe together you finish with it. And of course, your sex is much deeper too, because it's based on like a deep emotional bond, and like you know each other better. Like you become better lovers to one another. You know how people are always like, "Oh, I'm really good at sex." I'm like, "No, Baba, it's relative to the partner." You can't just be like good at sex, because that's such an egoic thing to say. It's like no, like it's relative to the person that you're making love to. Like you have to know them and understand them to be able to like serve them in that context. So imagine in a relationship where you have that over lots of years, and also you have the Kama Sutra and all the shastras that we have developed in our culture for like maximizing your enjoyment. Then after a few years, you might get to like the very peak of that enjoyment with somebody. I think the best possible sex is only really possible, I think, after like this level of investment emotionally and romantically and all that. And also, of course, with the knowledge, you have to like have the Kama Sutra, I think.
Um, wouldn't it be very awkward to go to your wife and be like, see, I see you like you're my mother
It
and
should be
I
shared. It should be shared. Like otherwise, I've actually known a lot of relationships like this. It's actually downright cruel to do this to your partner if they don't share the bhava. And I've seen relationships end up in divorce because one partner wanted to practice a bhava that the other one didn't. I think in that case, it's better to be honest and just like don't be in marriage at all. If that's going to be what you're going to do. But if you're going to be in marriage, then yeah, you're right. Like it would be cruel to your partner to suddenly just be like, yeah, I'm sorry, I'm done. I'm just not interested in this anymore. And then like then your partner's like, but that's not, I didn't consent to that. Like it's still something that I value. So like yeah, no, I think you're right. It has to be a shared kind of thing, like a conversation. Like say somebody might want an open marriage. That's a conversation that they both should have and both consent to, right? And that's certainly better. It's certainly better that they have that conversation than that somebody like cheats or something. That would be adharmic. I don't think it's wrong to have extramarital sex, not at all. But it's wrong to do that without the consent of your partner. So maybe the only thing you needed to do is to bring it up and be like, hey, I think we need to have partners outside of each other because it's the way that I'm trying to articulate. I don't know. Or, oh my God, I've discovered that maybe I'm bisexual. So although I am still really attracted to you, there's a part of me that I feel is unexplored. Can I please, like something? Or like, oh, and in the same way that a person would bring up their like kinks or something in the context of talking to their partner in an intimate, safe space, in that same way, you might say, I think I'm just really finishing with sexuality right now. Like I've come to the point in my spirituality where I no longer see myself as a body, and I no longer see you as a body, and I just want you to know that like that doesn't need to mean anything. Like I'm perfectly okay to continue like making love or something like that. But then maybe your partner will be inspired by that and be like, oh, that's such a lofty and exalted view of the world. And if you're willing to see me as a child, I can practice seeing you as a mother, and then I can treat like something. You shouldn't underestimate your partner either, but also we shouldn't be cruel and just like impose our bhavas on people who don't want them.
But like once you're committed, like there are many spiritual practitioners who just walked away from their marriage, right?
Yeah.
Like there is Buddha, there is
Yes.
like Siddhartha, there is Mirabai, there is Akka Mahadevi. All these women, all these people were married with spouses, and they have communicated their feelings on what's happening. And because of societal pressure, they just had to walk away.
Yes.
And this is also appreciated, but
Yes. Yes.
how well is it respected spiritually? Like just walking away.
No, super respected. I think this is this. So, Shrima, your duty is to your spirituality first and foremost, right? If that means you have to walk away from a relationship, do it. So, all the conversation I had just now is only with regards to like insofar as you're invested in that relationship and insofar as it's not an obstacle to your spiritual life. Anything that's an obstacle to your spiritual life, forget it. However, society might like say, oh, you have to go to college, oh, you have to be in a relationship, oh, you have to do this for your parents, or you have to do this fuck all that. Like just walk out and become a Swamini. Like just it's perfectly okay. I think one of my first few texts to you was that, right? I'm like, man,
Right.
you can at any point just be like walk out and become a nun. Like my advice to you in the beginning when I understood what kind of spiritual aspirant you were was like maybe a monastic life might suit you actually. Given your proclivities, given your past samskars, given what you told me with that chakra and Gayatri mantra practice, I was like, whoa, like you are hardcore. You are like probably going to be more supported in an environment of other spiritual practitioners and not burdened by this horrible thing called duty. Swamiji called it the scorching midday sun. He hated the word duty. He said it's like garbage that you try to make smell better with like roses or something like that. It's the way that we as a society justify the morbid attraction for flesh to flesh. So don't be deluded. Duty is just a word that we use to spiritualize and purify and refine our animalistic proclivities. But duty, dharma, is like I said earlier, nothing to a person of spiritual character. Like you don't care about dharma or duty. That's for like people to like, not kill each other in society. You're already leaving society behind. So if anytime you feel like it, you can leave your marriage and become a sannyasini. But you don't have to. Our claim is that there's no need to leave your house or your family or your spouse or anything. Like you can totally have all of those things as long as you see them as God. So Swamiji's essay, a lecture called God in Everything, the first essay in the Complete Works Volume 2, read that one. Or just Google it. Swami Vivekananda, God and Everything, you'll see that. He's saying most spiritual advice is dry suicidal advice. It tells you to run away and die in a Himalayan cave somewhere. A person like that has missed the point. And also, you shouldn't plunge into the vanities of the world. That's also not fulfilling. You don't have to give up the world. You just have to give up your idea that the world is not God. And you're right, Ma. If you see your spouse as like your child or your brother or your sister or your friend, that's going to be difficult to have a sexual relationship with them. And Ananda Mayima is a really good example here. After she attained liberation, her husband wanted to make love to her, and he looked upon her. And by the way, she's an exceptionally beautiful woman, right? Ananda Mayima, a beautiful young woman whose husband very naturally wanted to like within the confine of wedlock, like have sex with her. But when he looked upon her in that way, see what happened. She did a miracle. She turned into like a corpse with maggots and everything like that. And every time he would experience a lustful thought, his wife would turn into a corpse in front of his very eyes. And soon that cured him of his lust, as it were. Because he became an honest materialist in a sense. He looked and he's like, is this really what I want? Do I really want to put flesh into flesh? Like, is this really my desire? And then through seeing what the body really was, bones and pus and phlegm and a picture of feces in the belly and like all the, he saw that and he was like, oh my God, that cured me. So sometimes it's like that too. So Anandamayi Ma cured her husband of his infatuation. Not to say it's a disease that needs to be cured, but in that relationship, that's what happened. In other relationships, like I cherish the attitude of Bhairava and Bhairavi, but I think it's best articulated within a non-power asymmetry, monogamous, like marital structure.
But Swami, with a spouse, this makes sense. But with your parents, somebody who has given birth to you so that you have a prarabdha karma with them from a past life that you have to fulfill your karma in your life for serving them. So is it also legible that you can just walk away from your
Of
parents?
course, absolutely. Many have, and many should.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's
For
it.
that, you can read what is it called? The Khalil Gibran's thing on kids.
Mhm.
Like your parents don't own you. Obviously, you owe, we say like we owe everything to them, but not really actually. Like in one sense, I know this is not very dharmic to say because we do in our culture say like without that womb, we wouldn't have a birth, and without that womb, like we wouldn't have this chance to practice spiritual life. But whose womb was it? Not really our mothers, the divine mothers. And more importantly, it's like it's not like they were really that directly involved anyway, you know? Like in many cases, they weren't doing it to conceive us, they were doing it because it was fun.
I was an IVF baby.
Oh, okay. In some cases,
So,
very, very intentional, right? But then
yeah.
even then, like I think they don't own this body or this mind. The Divine Mother does. So I gave a lecture a long time back. I don't know if it's still available since the YouTube ban, but it was called "Your Parents Are Not Your Parents, and Your Kids Are Not Your Kids." I
Mhm.
gave a teaching like from Advaita Vedanta to kind of challenge this idea because I'm not the body. So then why should I take the relations of bodies so seriously? As Swamiji said, duty is the morbid attraction for flesh to flesh. And that doesn't mean in a spouse relationship. It can mean parents. I'm not my parents' child, and nor are they my parents. I'm a spirit, they're a spirit, and our journeys are individual. They might be shared for a time, but that doesn't mean they're always shared. And so it's very lucky if you have siblings, because then you can feel like, okay, they'll take care of them. But many great spiritual people did not. They did not have siblings. Shankara, for instance,
Single
really,
child.
yeah, like that's the thing. Like it'd be lucky, like you have like okay, they're elder, and so you see, Ma like prepares the way. Like if you're worried about your family and you're like, oh my God, I have to take care of them. Um, Sometimes you find that she'll take care of them. Maybe an elder brother or sister or some other member of the family, an uncle and auntie or someone else in your community. Granted, back then in our communities, it was much more communal. And it still is now in the more rural setting. People would really look out for one another. These days, in urban Delhi or in urban Mumbai or something, you could die in your apartment and no one will know until next week. It's a tragic thing, but in our cities now, we find that there isn't the same sense of looking out for one another. But back then, and I am the only child of my mother and father, the eldest child, but if I decided, and not eldest, only child, if I decided to walk out in my family and I was the principal breadwinner and my father is no longer able to work, my parents both work, but at a point when they weren't able to work, who will take care of them? And back then, the village would. Now, maybe it's a question of like, oh my God, they might need a home or something. But like all of that, I think Ma sees to it. She brings a relative, she brings an elder, she brings some member of the community, and they're taken care of. They suddenly come into money. I don't know. She provides the means. Now, read the life of Swami Vivekananda. You see that Swamiji really struggled with this. He was the eldest. His father suddenly died. They were plunged into debt, and he was responsible for his brother and his sister and for his mother. His elder sister committed suicide even. How tragic. And you can imagine that Swamiji feels probably like if I had only been there, or he's so torn about this calling, this monastic calling, and his family. And he said these were the most agonizing years of my life. He was torn between these two responsibilities, one to Thakur and to his true calling, and the other to his family. He chose his true calling, his spiritual life. So did Buddha Deva. So I think you're right to point out our culture celebrates dharma, but it really, really celebrates moksha. Our heroes are people who have left everything behind, including their duties to family. Dharma is good for the animal, but it's a restraint on you, on a devi, on the goddess. It's good if you're an animal trying to learn to be human, but if you're human trying to be a deva, or a Devi, then dharma is only a constraint.
Thank you. Thanks a lot,
Yeah.
Jema, Swami.
Jaima, Jaima. Your question about the Panchamakaras is so interesting. It's like the idea of Panchamakara includes Maithuna. And so while we understand like why we have these boundaries in our community, isn't it necessary to remove the boundary? And I think, yeah, like it's complicated when we have swamis like and swaminis who are ochre robed do it, right? Obviously, because they've taken vows of celibacy and now they want to practice tantra. It's a bit difficult. So it seems like, yeah, when people practice tantra, they didn't generally belong to like Shankara's Dashnami. They were swamis of a different sort. And so we have a different title for them. We don't call them Puri or something. We call them Bhairava this, Bhairavi that, or Veera is the masculine noun, Veera would be the feminine noun. But like they were practicing a different, and some of them weren't married, obviously. They just had their Bhairavi and they went to the Smashan and they did all these things. But I think now what I'm addressing is rather the tendency to use one's position of authority and power in a spiritual community, and in the name of doing these sadhanas, making many Bhairavis and Bhairavas or something like that. Again, not knocking it. If that's your trip, that's your trip. That can be fun too. But I'm generally saying there's like a more consensual, more dharmic, safer way to do this. I think everyone should engage in sadhanas according to their own proclivity. Some people will never come near the Panchamakaras, and nor should they. But other people maybe can really benefit from Panchamakaras. And insofar as they're using them, they should use them under proper guidance and remember that they're using them for sadhana, not for enjoyment. Like when we use Panchamakaras, it's it's a technique. There's a purpose for it, and it's not that different from doing a puja. So it's like a different world entirely, and I think it's best done within the consensual structure of marriage. But that's just me. I don't even marriage. I don't even mean like I don't even mean to support the institution of marriage in this way. I like it. I think it's kind of cool. Like it's nice to be married, but I don't. I think like it's not just marriage. It's also like a stable, consensual relationship with an equal partner. I think I'll put it that way. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Swami. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, Jaima, Jaima. Sorry you had to sneak out at 3 a.m. to ask that, but I hope you're satisfied. It's a good question and a good clarification because I'm saying all of these things and it's like, oh, but that's directly conflicting with some sadhanas in the tantric tradition also. Right. Oh, that's funny. Alistair is saying there was a Sex in the City episode where Samantha tried to date a brahmacharya. No, it's surprisingly very popular among secular people too. Like so people who are not at all in the spiritual world, they're like in some kind of like Reddit community I've heard also who are like practicing semen retention so that they can be like stronger in the gym or something like that or so they can I don't know, have more productivity or something. Because people are starting to understand that in the male body, that a loss of semen sometimes leads to a loss of like some enthusiasm or some energy. And so they're starting to experiment with ideas of urdhva retas, semen retention, for perfectly secular goals. So I can see why that would happen. Like people sometimes just do this. And also, if you're in a relationship, if you're in a marriage, brahmacharya means something else. And brahmacharya is one of the most misunderstood concepts also because like it means different things to different communities. So in a married construct, like it could be like just brahmacharya is just being devoted to one partner. Being and just being with that partner your whole life, that's called brahmacharya also in a married setting. So I don't know, it's very interesting how we're all in a different place with it, but at no point should you take away from any of this that there's a moral or dharmic issue with sexuality, not at all, or even that there's any problem with money, not at all, or even with power or with politics. All of these are fine. It's just in order to maintain a safe spiritual environment that can serve the vast majority of people, some boundaries need to be set with regards to politics, money, and power. So the less of it there is, the better it is for the community, just generally. But that's because the community's goal is to serve the vast majority of people. So like specific sadhanas might be good for specific people, but that doesn't mean that they should be championed by a community because they might not be good for everyone in that community. And the message, a public message around those things can be spiritually deleterious to those who maybe want to try these kinds of things without a guru. But by the way, by spiritually deleterious, I don't mean to scare you. You just ends up, you maybe waste a few years. That's it. As my guru said, a fall, it's not that bad. It's just like you could have made a bit more progress in the past 3 years, but you made less than you could have because you did something that wasn't that productive. That's all I mean. I'm not trying to scare you. And so, you know what I'm saying? I'm saying something really radical. I'm saying fuck around and find out. Like, don't be so repressed. Don't be so afraid. Don't think like you're gonna go to hell or something like that. Just like live your life honestly and genuinely. And if you want to be in like a hippie commune where everyone's having orgies, like that's fine. That's perfectly fine. Do that. Just know what you're getting into and make sure it's all really consensual and not like, a trap. It's so funny. It happened to Swamiji. It's a really funny story. So Swamiji was observing brahmacharya for years. He was probably like a lifelong brahmachari. I don't know, but probably Nitya brahmachari. So it generates a lot of power and people could feel it. when he walked into the room, you could feel his charisma. And those who know yogic sciences, they can spot a brahmachari, a true brahmachari, when they see one. By the way, just because you're not coming doesn't mean you're a brahmachari. You could, in your mind, be having all sorts of sexual fantasies, and that will deplete your ojas also. So a true brahmachari is chaste in word, thought, and deed. So Swamiji had that, okay? And he had the power that comes from brahmacharya. This is a yogic fact. It's not about morality, it's an energetic fact. So anyway, Swamiji once he stayed with some sadhus. It's so funny. You know, he's a wandering monk. So he just stays in random houses wherever he can get lodging, he'll stay there. So he stayed with some sadhus. And you know what happened? He realized that he was caught by a sex cult. Like they were all like some kind of tantric group that they were all having sex with each other, and then suddenly he heard next door the bell, the puja is starting, and he heard the sounds of men and women, and probably he was hearing like moaning and stuff like that. He was like, "Oh my God, what did I get myself into?" And then one of the sadhus came in and said, "We've caught you. We know you're a Nitya Brahmacharya." He said, "We know you've been practicing unbroken Brahmacharya for a long time, unavachina Brahmacharya. And we mean to involve you in this ritual so we can get your power in order to get siddhis." So Swamiji's like, I don't even know what that entails. Like maybe they would like tie him down and have someone have sex with him or something, or like try to seduce him into having sex, or like at like sword point or something, threaten him or something. Who knows what would have happened, okay? But they locked the door. I kid you not, this is a story that's reported in volume one of the life of Swami Vivekananda by his Eastern and Western disciples. And it's in that chapter where he's like wandering like in northern India, I think. And so he's like, he's in trouble. He got locked in a room of sex people. So it's like, what is he gonna do, right? Like they're trying to get his brahmacharya. They're trying to like have sex with him, try to get his brahmacharya. So then he managed to send a message through somebody. There was like somebody, I don't know, like he was able to send a message and they went and got help and everyone came and like released him. And then he was much more careful about where he stayed in the future. And that's a funny story, right? I like that story. Another story is Sri Ramakrishna. He actually went to see some of these groups, like the Karta Bhajas and whatnot, because Sri Ramakrishna loved all forms of spirituality. He supported all forms of spirituality. So in one story, he went to the, I think, Karta Bhajas. One of the pundits, like Vaishva Charan or something, Vaishva, I don't know, one of the big pundits, you know, like that were very popular at that time, brought him to this like sex kind of community. I don't know if it was necessarily a sex community. It was probably like kind of an orgiastic. Everyone sits in a big circle. Bhairava Chakra it's called, or Guru Chakra it's called, and then maybe there's like something orgiastic that happens with different partners that are not your own spouse. Like there's called 64 yogini type pujas. But anyway, he was at one of these and a woman approached him and allegedly he like just couldn't get it up or something because he saw her as Ma. So he was just like Ma, Ma, Ma. He was not in the mood. And he never was. Whenever he saw a prostitute, he would fall at her feet and think Ma. And so even one time Mathur Babu hired three sex workers to like kind of seduce him because they felt like if he had just kind of released, he would be okay. It was just too much brahmacharya that maybe was cooking his brain. So to help him, they thought to relax him, let's just hire these three beautiful women to like sleep with him. And the moment he saw them, he went into an ecstasy and he said, Ma, Ma, Ma. And they were horrified. And they were like, how dare you ask us to seduce a sadhu like this, a saint like this? We'll get bad karma for doing so. And they beat Mathur up and ran. These, so anyway, importantly, in this story, this woman approaches sadhvi, a practitioner in this kula, approached him and like tried to like make an advance or something, and he wasn't able to do it. So she said, "Ah, this man is just a beginner." Isn't that cute? Because from the standards of that community, if you can't participate in this type of sadhana, then you're a beginner. So you can flip the script. You can say Thakur and his attitude of seeing God as a mother is not as refined as the attitude of Vira. That's what this woman was implying with her statement. So some people say Thakur is the best tantrika in the world because before he could even sip the wine, he went into samadhi, meaning the ritual had its effect immediately for him. You know, the wine immediately reminded him of the bliss of God and he went into samadhi. So, do you think he's a good tantrika or a bad tantrika? Some people say he's a bad tantrika because he wasn't really even able to go through with the ritual. He wasn't able to drink the wine. He wasn't able to have intercourse with the woman. Like, he just immediately goes into samadhi each time. So, he did japa, by the way, sitting on the young naked woman. Like, Bhairavi Brahmani brought this woman and then he sat on top of her and with his japa mala, he did japa and he immediately went into samadhi. Like that. So, there are all these interesting stories. He ate fish curry out of the skull. Like Sri Ramakrishna's tantric sadhanas are obviously something that we don't talk about because they're very hard to understand. And especially in this context of a very puritanical world, some people might misunderstand. That being said, though, I don't know if that's helpful. That like there are these various stories of people getting involved, like Swamiji getting involved in something they didn't know what he was getting involved in. So my claim is that like, look, if you want to be in a hippie orgy, like sex commune, like do it. It's fine. Like go to Burning Man. There's an orgy dome. You know, just be safe or whatever. Like just have fun. Like live your life. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with these things. I'm just saying there's a bit of a danger Yeah, exactly. And if you do Kali, if you do mantra to Ma Kali, a lot of people report this. You get surge of rajas, like anger and arousal, and sometimes hunger, and sometimes insomnia. Like japa for Ma Kali, especially that 22 syllable mantra where there's a lot of bijas like that. People have reported this. Not always, but sometimes. And you could even argue the whole sadhana of sitting on top of a naked woman as a heterosexual man doing japa is so you can generate that rajas and then direct it up the Shushumna Nadi. So it's all about maybe generating and harnessing and redirecting that energy. Anyway, these are all very precise sadhanas that, are done under close supervision that have a spiritual end. It's not just about pleasure seeking, but that isn't to say pleasure is bad. It's just that this is different. This is not a Kama Shastra, this is a Moksha Shastra. It's about attaining God, but through these means that are maybe not for everyone. That being said, they might be for someone, you know. So we can't close the door. Like I like to represent these sadhanas because obviously they're underrepresented in the tantric world, and it's hard to represent them in a responsible way. So I'm trying to represent them in the most responsible way that I know how, in a way that like isn't so shady and pervy and seedy like how usually they're presented, you know. Like these are things that we can speak about in a mature way. Like these are all discussions that we can have and ought to have as long as like we're all mature, consenting adults who just can be honest, you know, with these things. That being said, the only thing I'm speaking out against is hypocrisy, is spiritual communities that like present as one thing and are something else behind closed doors. And a lot of this hypocrisy comes from repression. Because you don't think it's okay to be horny, therefore you present as some like fully celibate person, and when in actuality you're thinking all these thoughts about everyone, and sooner or later it's gonna come out, and you're gonna have some kind of affair, and it's gonna be a huge scandal. And the only reason it really was a scandal was because you pretended to be something that you were not, because you were saying one thing and doing another. That's the scandal. The scandal wasn't that you had sex. Right? That's not the problem. The problem is that you told everyone that sex was bad, that they needed to stop having sex, that like you had gone beyond sex, that you were a celibate, and then now here you are caught in a compromising situation. Or you told everybody that you weren't interested in money, and then all the while you were shoring up your resources and collecting money and trying to sell expensive courses. That won't do. If you want money, be clear. That's why I like these new agers who are like, $450 for this workshop or $3,332. You know, like they always give some stupid number like that, like 101 or like 111. No, actually 101 is an Indian tradition. We often give one also extra, but like 111 or 132 or something. They charge something ridiculous. I think that's honest at least because you're saying I'm doing business. You want this information? Fine, but you pay. You know, that's business, and at least you know what you're getting with this person. This is a businessman or a business person. Okay, good. At least they're being honest. Or they present as someone who is interested in like politics, power. Like it's okay. Then you don't get fooled, you know. But the danger is when people present to be one thing that they're not, you know. So I think it's better that we all just be honest and that spiritual communities are honest and that we can honestly decide what kind of spiritual communities we want to be a part of. And many people have decided that this just isn't the one for them. Like that one guy, remember he came and he was horrified that we weren't having orgies. Do you remember? He was like, "So do you guys do like Kaula stuff?" And I'm like, "I'm so sorry to disappoint you, but my attitude is to look upon Kali as a mother, and we are in the lineage of Sri Ramakrishna. So generally, although those are all valid sadhanas, we tend not to sit in a big circle and do like a 64 Bhairava Yogini kind of thing. Like we don't do that." And he was like, "How can you call yourself Kaulas? Like in what sense are you Kaulas if you don't like?" He just couldn't understand that we weren't about that. And that's good because by being honest, like we don't do these things, then he was able to say, "Oh, well, I'm looking for these things. And I thought your community was going to be it. I thought you guys were doing these things, but it looks like you aren't. So, okay." And then he just moved on. I mean, not without making quite a bit of a fuss though first. He was like, "Oh, you guys are all repressed and whatnot." And so he started like spam posting and like trying to prove that we were repressed or something just because we weren't interested in doing his orgies. But I mean, like, it's good because he came, he saw what this community was about, he realized it wasn't as orgiastic as he wanted it to be, you know, and so he realized that we were more like Kali cremation ground people and not really Lalita Tripura Sundari like orgy people. And then he kind of like left. Good. Because now, hopefully, God willing, he'll find a community that matches what he wants more, a more neo-tantric sort of approach. You know, it's not wrong. What he wanted was not wrong. I think it's just important that communities are upfront about what they are so that people can make more discerning choices. Okay, Jaima, Jaima. Good. So I hope that was fun. Yes, Amrita Devi, sorry to keep you waiting. These are all very delicate and nuanced subjects, so I wanted to take the time to address them. But please, ma, please.
Hi, I had two questions. One was related to that, I guess, the longing for the divine, is it possible that it could get like heavy to get on with your daily material world things? That was my question one, and like how to deal with that, and what to do or something. And second
Yeah.
was regarding burnout, like if you are someone who doesn't like to miss a single day and you still have burnout, what do you do?
These two questions are really important. To your first question, yeah, no, I think many of us feel this that like Sri Ramakrishna would say, the in the beginning, when a woman gets married and she moves into the household of her spouse, then her mother-in-law will give her a lot of work to do. In other words, she's very busy in a worldly sense. But then she gets pregnant. And the more pregnant she becomes, the less and less work her mother-in-law is going to give her. Because after all, her main duty at this point is to bear this child. And so the heavier she becomes with child, the less strenuous is going to be her work in the household. You have to understand the Indian mother-in-law idea here, right? Like she's very, very demanding of her daughter-in-law because in one sense it's her competitor, so you can see like this is my child but now he's your spouse, so which one of us is his baby? Like there's a bit of a and so she might be very like demanding in the beginning, but once the daughter-in-law is pregnant she lays off a little bit, and finally once the daughter-in-law has given birth the mother-in-law just stops giving her work to do. In fact, her only job at that point is to play with her child. So Sri Ramakrishna used this metaphor a lot to describe how the more sadhana we do, the more we become spiritualized, the less and less of a taste we're going to have with like worldly things. More and more we're going to want to retreat into meditation and be absorbed in God. And that's natural and good. So Sri Ramakrishna would say, try to finish what duties you have in the world and then plunge into spiritual life. And so we give another metaphor of a woman who finishes all her household duties and then goes for a bath. And when she's gone for her bath, no one can call out to her anymore. That's her time. Almost like a self-care idea. So it's natural. Everyone feels this way, where like life feels more and more like a burden the more and more progress I make in spiritual life. And you know what? This is Sri Ramakrishna's metric for success in spiritual life. He says, Ishvara Anurag Vishaya Virag. Vishaya Virag. You have to say that in a Bengali accent. But the idea is that you become less and less interested in Vishaya. By the way, what is Vishaya? Vishaya is Visha, poison, in all the temporal, sensual objects of the world. You become less and less interested in the world of form and objects. Why? Because you're more and more in love with God. If you become dispassionate about the world without love for God, then what you have is dissociation, nihilism. That's not fun. And if you have love for God, but you don't have dispassion for the world, then is that really love for God? Because love for God brings with it naturally a disinterest in money, sex, power, in like sensuality. Like you become so much more refined in your experience. So Amrita Devi, you're not alone. Like this is absolutely to be expected. Like there's going to be a time when a person feels the world to be a burden on them. In fact, what to say of a spiritual aspirant? Everyone feels this. So here's the answer to that. The answer is Swami Vivekananda Karma Yoga. You just have to change the whole picture. Like these are not worldly things. These are not duties. These are opportunities to serve God in the form of that particular person. So now what you do in puja, that exact bhava that you have in puja, you can bring into your household daily activities, your workplace. So your work becomes puja. Your service to your family becomes puja. And it should feel like puja. Okay, Jaima, Jaima, Jaima. Yeah, we should end. I mean, this has been going on for some time. I appreciate your patience. And I'm fucked because tonight there's a big puja we're hosting. And I should probably go and start cleaning because I have a call at 4 and then there's satsang at 5 and then 6 and then everyone will arrive. So I better leave you now because I better take the opportunity in the next 40 minutes to like super clean the house, before all these people arrive. And anyway, so I'll close with this idea that like karma yoga is the solution. That like the real most important thing that we can do is to spiritualize everything. Right, Paula? I think so. Thank you, Ma. I thought it was really, really good also. But thank you so much for coming, you guys. But yeah, like spiritualize everything. Look upon the world and know that everyone is God and that everything that you are doing for everyone in the world is a puja to God, and then it won't feel so heavy anymore. But also, another thing, Amrita Devi, trust this: the more you become established in spiritual life, the less and less work your mother in law will give you. Meaning, somehow or other, maybe your needs become less, and therefore you need to work less because you don't need the same amount of money. Or, like, maybe your needs become less, so cooking is a bit easier, or something like your amount of investment in the world becomes less because your desire and fear regarding the world becomes less. So in one sense, you might need to like just cut down on your duties, and you naturally will. Or weirdly enough, and this is also in response to Shri's question about the parents, like weirdly enough, for those who are really sincere about God, she herself will make arrangements for you. So she will ensure that you have the money that you need. Maybe she just sends a mysterious donor and removes the financial wants for that month. Okay, maybe you can take a month off of work and go on spiritual retreat and just give fully to your spiritual life. Or maybe you yourself find that you become distasteful and you just stop doing certain things. You don't feel like you need to do them anymore. So I think God herself will remove the various duties that are no longer applicable to your spiritual life. But if they are there, it's because you need them, right? Like it's because they're still helpful for you. If they aren't, God will take it away. But if they're there, it's because you're meant to spiritualize them and do some karma yoga with them. Because honestly, if they weren't there, you might find that there's too much time in the day, or like meditation is just too much. Now, to your second question about burnout, it's important that we don't like conflate discipline with an egoic clinging to forms. Discipline is very important. Like we should, niyama is important. We should do the same thing every single day at the same time until we attain the result. But there are some days, like maybe it's the time of the month, or maybe you're feeling tired. Not to say that just because the time of the month you can't do sadhana. Some people obviously say that, but we don't say that. You can do sadhana anytime, and it's no problem. But maybe during the time of the month, there's some good reasons for saying this too. Like you might just feel tired and you might not like want to do sadhana. Now, in that case, you should honor that. You should honor that a yagya is already occurring within you, and maybe you don't feel like doing such intense sadhana today. It's okay. Today is Ekadashi. It's the Nirjala Ekadashi, right? So as I'm speaking to you now, it's the 11th day of the waxing moon in the month of Jeshta, and today it's Gayatri Jayanti also. It's a very auspicious day. So it's good we have a nice conversation, nice long satsang on such a special day. But today, some people are just not drinking any water and they're just fasting the whole day. That's good. That kind of tapasya, this upabhas, But if you have a demanding job, a strenuous job, and you know that by observing upabhas, you're just going to be like so tired and dizzy, and you won't be able to think of God because you'll only be thinking about food. Like, if you know that's going to happen, then it's better that you eat. Like you don't be committed to this concept that because it's Nirjal Ekadashi, therefore I have to like fast. No, fast if it's spiritually nourishing to you to do so. But also, don't fast if it's going to harm your spirituality. So like don't be too attached to forms. On certain days, maybe you need to back up. Or more importantly, you need to change your sadhana. So don't become like so fixed on one sadhana because then you can burn out. So you could say, instead of doing this particular sadhana, maybe I'll read today, or maybe I'll worship God through a puja, or maybe I'll um, watch a lecture or come to satsang or meditate, and thinking that these things are also equivalent to whatever sadhana it is you're doing, unless you're doing a specific sadhana for a specific outcome. Then that's no longer that's outside of my pay grade, because I only talk about sadhanas about attaining God. I'm not really interested in the tantric sadhanas that are more like mechanistic or like kind of like transactional. Do X and then you get Y. In that case, I think niyama is very important. Like if you're doing sadhana for a spirit, which I know you're not doing, but this is just for the public. If you are doing sadhana to get something from a specific deity, you better not fuck up, because if you fuck up the terms of your contract, then that spirit, why should she respond to your plea? You're saying, if I do X, you'll do Y. So you better do X. Which means whether I like it or not, every single day for the next 44 days or however long that sadhana is, I have to do what I said I would do. But this is low tantra. I don't want to judge it. I think it's great also. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about realizing God. We're not talking about getting spirits to do work for us, or which is fine, by the way. I'm not judging that. Or like, making a transaction. So in that case, it's not that important. Form is not that important. Like niyama is not that important in this sense. But niyama is important in that like every day if I say I'm going to practice at this time, I should, but I should be loosey-goosey about what that practice looks like. Some days it might just be reading. Some days it might just be singing and chanting the name of God. And some days it might be strong, fierce, concentrated meditation. But ultimately, let's not be greedy. Let's not conflate enthusiasm with spiritual greed. Let's not conflate egoic attachment to form with discipline. Let's bend and not break. So like relax. Like no, ma, she's there for you. I can say this to you. Some other people I will never say relax. I'll say work harder, because many people are too relaxed, too complacent. But for you, we can say relax, ma. What will you do even after you attain God? What will you do? The exact same thing that you're doing now, loving God. So in one sense, there's nothing for you to attain through sadhana. You're doing sadhana for joy, for the simple purpose that it pleases Ma. So in that sense, why be so um, fierce about it? Like relax, smile, no need to grit your teeth, just enjoy your spiritual life.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
And this
Just
is a great lecture.
Thank you, Ma. Thank you. I pray to the Divine Mother today on this auspicious Nirjal Ekadashi, on this very, very beautiful Gayatri Jayanti. I pray to that most ancient of deities, in whom resound the taintless Vedic hymns. I pray to her, O Mother, bless us, that we may practice spirituality intensely, but with great joy and with great delight. Bless us that we may come into contact with just the right teacher at just the right time, just the right community that's just right for us. I pray to you, Mother, you who are guiding each and every step, be with us always, that we may attain the goal of spiritual life, which verily is present even now in the means. Oh, Mother, help us finish with our greed and our craving and our frustration, and help us relax into this moment, which is verily the aesthetic rapture of coming face to face with you in your form as all this. Om Sarvam Shivaika Eva. Everything is verily Shiva. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat Shri Ramakrishna Arpanam Astu. Jai Ma. Ah, Kali Kali.